Do you feel like you're falling behind in life? You see everyone else doing well, and you feel stuck, just frozen in life. The ideas from the great philosophers and thinkers aren't relics. They're the instruction manual for any problem you face in life. A guy felt like a failure because of the life he had. He worked a job he didn't like and was in a complicated relationship with his partner. On top of that, his family just made things worse with tons of problems. When he was at his breaking point, he got help from a simple janitor who taught him the secret based on ancient wisdom that changed his life forever. Besides that secret, you'll see how the biggest airplane helped him overcome life's struggles. On our channel, we use stories to explain how to solve problems and how to change your life for real. Our content isn't about religion. It's about the architecture of the mind. This story is an example of how we use this ancient wisdom to understand the invisible junk we carry around and find a real purpose and do what we really like and were born to do. You'll learn how to map out the best path to change anything you don't want in your life. For more strategies on inner strength, like and follow this channel. Let's get to today's awesome content. Julian's world was a 30-foot circle. He orbited between the heat of the kitchen and the mahogany tables of a restaurant where he served cuts of meat he could never afford. He was an impeccable waiter, precise, efficient, anticipating a guest's need for water before they even felt thirst. And he was disgusted by this efficiency. Every professional smile was a debit against his soul. His life wasn't being lived. It was being served on silver trays, one table at a time. The real engine of his stagnation, the anchor holding him in this useless orbit, was a moment from 5 years ago. He wasn't always a waiter. He was a pilot in training. He had invested a small inheritance and every dime of his savings into flight hours, only to fail spectacularly on his final practical exam. He froze under pressure during the check ride. That failure didn't just ground him, it buried him. The financial debt from that flight school was a relentless creditor, but the emotional debt was the real killer. This job wasn't a choice, it was a penance. His entire existence was a cruel aeronautical metaphor. He was trapped in a holding pattern over an airport, waiting for a fog to clear that never would. The fog followed him home. The apartment he shared with his companion, Sarah, was a cold sanctuary of shared silence. The flight incident was the unspoken thing that filled every room. They never ever talked about it. Sarah, who had lived through the financial collapse with him, now feared anything that smelled like ambition. The modest, steady paycheck from the restaurant was the only thing keeping her own panic at bay. Their silence about the past was dense and toxic. He would arrive home, the smell of grilled steak clinging to his uniform, only to find her on the couch. An envelope from the aviation loan company would be on the kitchen table, unopened, radiating failure. He was trapped at work by the debt from his past, and he was trapped at home by the suffocating silence required to keep that past buried. It was a perfect, inescapable prison, built from two different kinds of bars. How can a person escape when their sentence is being enforced at work and at home? We see here the mechanics of that specific poison that seeps into the soul. It's not just the act of remembering the past, it's the inability to digest it. Julian is stuck in a loop, forced to ruminate on the trauma of his failure. It's like a cow chewing on the same piece of bitter grass over and over, unable to swallow. This is the physiological state of the person who cannot move on. The memory doesn't just visit, it lives in him, fermenting. It's a self-poisoning. Because he cannot go back and act on the failure. Because he cannot change the outcome of that check ride. The vengeful energy that has nowhere to go turns inward. It poisons his present. It robs him of the ability to even see a future. His feeling is not an active anger, but a passive decay. It's the slow, steady rot of a life held in emotional suspension, all because one event was too painful to metabolize. This is the agonizing trap of the human mind. We suffer more often in imagination and in memory than in reality. The check ride itself was a few hours of panic, 5 years gone. The reality of that event is over, but Julian's imagination of it, his judgment on it, is a daily torture he inflicts upon himself. He is not suffering from the failure, he is suffering from his story about the failure. The story says he is worthless, the story says he is a fraud. The story says he deserves to be a waiter, serving men who actually do things in the world. He wakes up every day, puts on the uniform, and chooses to believe that story. He is paying a devastating emotional interest rate on a debt that should have been purely financial. His past isn't haunting him. He is actively, desperately clinging to it because it has become the only explanation for the emptiness of his present. He would walk into the apartment, see the bill on the table, and look at Sarah. She would look away, back to the glow of her phone. This was their ritual. Her fear was the wall and his shame was the lock. She was terrified he might try again, that he might dream and drag them both back into financial ruin. Her fear, her desperate need for the safety of his miserable job, was the external validation his own self-hatred needed. He felt trapped by her, but the truth is, they were perfect collaborators. She was the anchor, but he was the one who refused to pull it up. He saw his life stretching out in this 30-foot circle, from the kitchen to the tables, from the tables to the silent apartment. Forever. The fog was never going to clear, not because it couldn't, but because he had forgotten that he was the pilot. He had accepted the fog as the only reality. The core of his paralysis was this profound belief that he had no control. The world had proven it to him. He had tried once, comprehensively, to follow a path. The result was catastrophic failure, crushing debt and the quiet disappointment of his family. He had learned his lesson. He had learned that to try is to fail. So now he did not try. He served. He orbited. He performed his duties with a precision that everyone mistook for professionalism, but it was really just apathy. He was the perfect waiter precisely because he was dead inside. He was a ghost in a holding pattern, and the absolute worst part of it, the part that tightened his chest every night as he walked home, was the slow, creeping realization that he might not even want the fog to clear. The fog was, at least, a familiar excuse. It's later that night. The silence in the apartment is a physical weight, a thick blanket covering the furniture. Julian is on the couch, his companion, Sarah, at the other end. They are inches apart, yet separated by miles of unspoken history. He's scrolling on his phone, a reflexive, numbing action. His thumb moves past political news, sports highlights, and then it stops. It hovers over an article, a headline about a new, hyper-realistic flight simulator. He just stares at the image of the cockpit. He doesn't click. He just looks. Sarah, sensing the sudden stillness in his scrolling, looks over. She sees the image. Her entire body tenses, the way an animal freezes when it senses a predator. She doesn't sigh. She doesn't yell. She says something far worse, her voice laced with a brittle, terrified kindness. "Julian, what are you looking at?" He quickly locks the phone, the screen going black. "Nothing. Just tired." She pauses, and then delivers the killing blow, a simple question loaded with 5 years of shared fear. "You're not dreaming again, are you? Aren't you tired of all that?" And there it is, that voice, the one that lives in the back of his skull. It's not his own. It's a cold, sharp, perfectly rational voice, and it activates instantly, seizing on her words as proof. "See?" it whispers. She knows. She sees you for exactly what you are, a waiter. A pathetic failure playing pretend on his phone. You don't just disappoint yourself, you terrify her. She's right. You failed. You are a failure. You don't deserve to even look at that article. You deserve this couch. You deserve this silence. You deserve the smell of the restaurant. This voice isn't an emotion. It's a judge. It's the ruthless internal critic whose only job is to protect him from ever feeling the humiliation of that check ride again, and its primary weapon is to convince him that he is fundamentally, irreversibly, and completely worthless. He just nods at her, forcing a smile. "Yeah, I'm tired. Just tired." He gets up and goes to the kitchen, the voice following him. "That's right, go get some water. That's something a waiter can do successfully." This is the second, deeper layer of the prison. We see how this internal mechanism thrives on external validation. That voice inside Julian's head, that cold, logical critic, is not an invader. It is a collection. It's a composite ghost, assembled from the condescending sympathy of his father, the disappointment of his flight instructor, and now the raw fear of his companion. As Carl Jung observed, the parts of ourselves that we disown, the parts we find shameful or unacceptable, in Julian's case the failure, don't simply vanish. they are exiled. They become the shadow, and that shadow develops a voice. That critic is the voice of his disowned failure. Its only function is to keep him from ever trying and failing again. It is a defense mechanism that has become a prison warden, and Sarah, in her fear, just handed the warden a new set of keys. He doesn't just think he's worthless, he now has proof that the person closest to him agrees. This mechanism explains why he feels so stuck. His paralysis isn't just about the past trauma, it's about the present-day belief in his own lack of value. This is the despair that Søren Kierkegaard called the sickness unto death. It's not the despair of having no self, it's the despair of not being yourself. Julian is living an inauthentic life. He is Julian the waiter, a role he plays, a mask he wears to appease his family, his creditors and his companion. But the authentic self, Julian the pilot, Julian the systems analyst, is still trapped inside. The internal critic's job is to keep that authentic self locked away, because that's the self that got him hurt. The critic whispers that it is safer to be the waiter. It is safer to accept the identity of a failure, because if you accept it, you never have to risk failing again. The pain of being a worthless waiter is, to the critic's logic, preferable to the potential agony of trying to be worthy and falling from the sky a second time. He stands in the dark kitchen, gripping the counter. Her words, "Aren't you tired?" echo, but he hears them as, "You are pathetic." This is the loop. The external world provides a neutral stimulus, a question born of her own fear, and his internal critic immediately translates it into a verdict on his worth. He has built a life where every external interaction serves as evidence for the prosecution. His job proves he's a servant. The debt proves he's irresponsible. And the person who should be his partner proves he's a foolish dreamer. He is trapped in a feedback loop where his inner world and outer world are in perfect, miserable agreement. He is not allowed to change. He is not allowed to hope. He is not allowed to even look at a picture of a cockpit. The tragedy of this moment is that he believes the voice. He mistakes the voice of his own fear for the voice of truth. He believes Sarah sees him as a failure. But what he doesn't see, what he cannot see from inside this loop, is that she is just as trapped as he is. She is not his judge. She is his fellow prisoner, chained to the same past event. Her fear is her own, but it has become the fuel for his. The critic is validated, and the cell door is locked for another night. What happens when the voice of your own deepest shame, the one you fight to silence every single day, finds a perfect, validating echo in the person you love the most? You stop fighting, you surrender, and you accept the life you have because you are convinced you deserve nothing more. It's Sunday, a day of supposed rest, which for Julian means a mandatory performance. He's in the kitchen, the apartment heavy with the silence of an unread newspaper, when his phone rings. The caller ID flashes, "Dad." He braces himself, picking up the phone with the practiced cheer of an actor stepping on stage. "Hey, Dad, how are you?" The conversation is a ritual of banal surfaces. They talk about the weather, about sports, about a leaky faucet in his parents' house. Julian plays his part, offering the right responses at the right times. Then the inevitable question comes, the one that makes his stomach clench every single week. "So, how's the restaurant, son?" Julian grips the counter. "It's fine, Dad, it's stable, busy." He can hear the manufactured pride in his father's voice, a pride that always feels laced with pity. "That's good. That's great. It's a stable job, Julian. We're proud of you. We're proud you finally landed on your feet. That whole other thing, that was just too risky. It's good you got that out of your system. Landed on your feet, got it out of your system. The words are meant to be a comfort, but they land like a verdict. This is his life script, the one handed to him by his family, the one he agreed to live. He is Julian, the dreamer who learned his lesson. He is Julian, the realistic waiter. The failure 5 years ago wasn't just his own. It became a family secret, an embarrassment, an unspoken trauma that they all agreed to bury under the concrete foundation of this stable job. His father's pride is contingent on him remaining this smaller, safer version of himself. Every Sunday, this phone call serves as a gentle, loving reminder of the bars of his cage. He is living a life that is not his, an identity he accepted to appease their fear, and in doing so has validated his own. He is a ghost, haunting a life that should have been his. We often mistake the roles we play for who we actually are. We see this happening in real time. Julian is trapped in a life that was assigned to him. As Alan Watts often pointed out, we are conditioned to confuse our persona, the social mask we wear, with our authentic self. His family, with the very best of intentions, handed him the mask of the realistic waiter to cover the unacceptable face of the failed pilot. And Julian, terrified of his own failure and desperate for their approval, put the mask on. He has worn it for so long, for 5 agonizing years, that the mask has begun to fuse with his skin. The tragedy is that this stable life, this realistic path, is a prison built entirely from the expectations of others. He is suffocating under a script he never auditioned for, but accepted as his destiny, because it was easier than facing the terror of writing his own. He hangs up the phone, the silence of the apartment rushing back in, now feeling colder, heavier. Sarah looks up from her magazine. "Everything okay?" she asks, her voice neutral. "Yeah," Julian says, forcing the casual tone. "Just Dad. Proud of my stability." The sarcasm is so faint he barely hears it himself, but the internal voice is screaming. "They're proud. You're a good son, a stable, realistic, empty shell." The phone call has just reinforced the verdict from the night before. His inner critic and his family are on the same team. They are the guardians of his cage. His life is a performance for their benefit, and the applause is the sound of his own soul dying. He is living someone else's definition of a good life, and it feels like a slow-motion death, a life he has mortgaged to pay for a single, past failure. This is the precise moment of spiritual stagnation Joseph Campbell warned about. This is the refusal of the call. When Julian failed his check ride, that wasn't the end of his story. It was the inciting incident. It was the call to adventure, the dragon that needed to be faced. It was the call to go into the dark forest of his own failure and find a new, stronger path. But his family, his village, told him the forest was too scary. They told him the dragons were real. They told him to stay inside the walls, to take the safe job, to be the good boy who learned his lesson. And he listened. He refused the call. This is the definition of a life unlived. He is not a hero on a journey. He is a cautionary tale who chose the village over the quest. And the emptiness he feels, the profound aching void, is the sound of his own adventure, his own real life, happening somewhere else, without him. He looks at his waiter's uniform, hanging clean and pressed on the back of a chair, ready for his evening shift. It looks like a costume. He feels like an imposter. The phone call, the conversation with Sarah, the job, they are all part of the same system. A system designed to keep him safe, safe from risk, safe from ambition, safe from the sky, safe from failure. And in doing so, it keeps him safe from life itself. He has handed the deed to his identity over to his family, to Sarah, to anyone who will promise to keep him from getting hurt again. He is an identity in foreclosure, a house repossessed by the bank of his past. And he is realizing, in this cold Sunday morning quiet, that the safety they've all built for him is indistinguishable from a tomb. His entire existence has become a defense against his own potential. The unspoken rule in his family, the secret of his failure, is the very thing that chains him to the restaurant. To even mention flying, to show interest in it, would be to break the family code, to disrespect the stable identity they all worked so hard to build for him. It would be an act of betrayal, and so he remains silent, serving tables, his internal voice agreeing with his father's. This is all you are. This is all you deserve to be. The dreamer is dead. Be grateful for the stability. He feels a sudden, sharp urge to go into the closet, to touch the flight stick, but he doesn't. That would be a betrayal, too. He just stands there, a prisoner in his own home, chained by the loving expectations of people who think they are saving him. Their life is governed by the routine. The routine is not a habit, it is a fortress. It is a complex system of defenses they have built, together, to keep the world out. Their days off are predictable to the minute. Coffee, silent reading, television, a simple meal cooked at home, sleep. There are no surprises. Surprises are dangerous. Surprises cost money. Surprises lead to hope, and hope, they both learned, is the precursor to devastating pain. The engine of this routine is the debt. It's the monster they both know is pacing just outside their apartment door. The routine is their ritual to keep it from breaking in. They are not living, they are performing a long, repetitive ceremony to appease a god they both fear. Every decision, from the brand of coffee they buy to the shows they watch, is filtered through the lens of one question. Is it safe? Is it predictable? Does it cost nothing? Julian is sitting on the couch. It's a Tuesday, his day off. The air in the apartment feels stale, thick with the ghosts of 5 years of unspoken fear. He looks out the window. The sun is shining. A flicker of something, a tiny, rebellious spark, ignites in his chest. He wants just for a moment to feel the world, to break the pattern. He turns to Sarah. "Hey," he says, his voice quiet, testing the air. It's nice out. Maybe we could, I don't know, just go for a walk? Or grab a burger from that cheap place on the corner?" He suggests it, and the temperature in the room drops. Sarah tenses. She looks at him, not with anger, but with a sharp, sudden terror. "A burger? Julian, we can't. We have to be careful. You know, that. We agreed." She gestures vaguely to the pile of mail on the kitchen table where the letters from the loan company live. Her message is clear. A walk is not a walk. A burger is not a burger. It is a risk. It is a deviation. It is the beginning of the other thing. The spark in Julian is instantly extinguished. He deflates, sinking back into the couch cushion. "Yeah, right, stupid idea." The routine wins. Her fear is the reinforcement. We are watching in real time how fear becomes a contagious disease. Julian's own terror of change, his paralysis, is constantly being validated by his companion. He looks at her and sees his own caution mirrored back at him. They are in a feedback loop of mutual terror. She is not just his partner. She is the anchor that guarantees the ship will never leave the perceived safety of the harbor. She is terrified that any movement, any ambition, any dream will summon the storm that wrecked them once before. And he, in his weakness, uses her fear as the ultimate excuse to stay paralyzed. He tells himself he is staying still for her, for the good of the relationship, when in reality he is just grateful for the excuse. This is the state of mind that Søren Kierkegaard identified as the root of all despair. It is the dizziness of freedom. They are standing at the edge of a cliff, the cliff of their own potential, the potential to live. But looking down into the abyss of the unknown, the terrifying void of what if, they are paralyzed by anxiety. And so they choose to turn their backs to the cliff. They choose to stare at the wall of their apartment, to focus on the predictable, miserable, but known reality of the routine. The routine, for all its suffocating emptiness, is not the void. The routine is the shield against the anxiety of choice. They have chosen the certainty of their misery over the misery of their uncertainty. They are not two people in a relationship. They are two prisoners who have agreed that their shared cell is, in fact, a home. Their routine is not peace. It is an armistice. It is a fragile truce, signed in the shadow of their shared trauma. They have mistaken this numbness, this shared anesthesia, for stability. They are not afraid of change itself. As the Stoics like Epictetus taught, they are terrified of the catastrophes they imagine change will bring. They are not disturbed by the event, a walk, but by their judgment about the event. In their minds, a burger is not a burger. It is the first step toward financial ruin. A walk is not a walk. It is the first step toward the dreaming that led to the check ride, the failure, the debt. They are suffering profoundly from disasters that exist only in their memories and their projections. Their present has been completely colonized by the ghosts of their past and the phantoms of their future, leaving no room for life itself. This is the true devastating nature of their shared prison. It is a collaboration. Julian's paralysis is justified by Sarah's fear. Sarah's fear is justified by Julian's past failure. They are locked in a perfect, self-sustaining system of inaction. Every day they spend on that couch, every safe decision they make, they add another layer of protection, another brick to the wall. They are protecting themselves from the very thing they need, life. They are hiding from the very energy that could save them. They are so numbed by the repetition, so anesthetized by the shared agreement to be realistic, and so utterly terrified by the shadow of what they owe, that a terrifying question begins to form. Maybe they don't even want to be saved. Maybe the prison is just too comfortable. The letter arrives on a Friday. It's different from the others. The envelope is thick, a heavy cream color, with a formal, windowed return address. It doesn't feel like a flimsy warning. It feels like a verdict. Julian stands in the narrow hallway, the smell of stale coffee in the air, and opens it. His eyes scan, but he doesn't need to read the legal jargon. He sees the key phrases. Final notice. Failure to respond. Commencement of wage garnishment. A cold, sharp vacuum opens in his stomach. It's done. The monster that lived in the shadows for 5 years, the thing he fed with his soul, has just stepped out of the darkness. It's no longer a threat. It's an action. The system has officially declared him a lost cause. His job, the one he hates, the one that defines his failure, is now just a pipeline for his punishment. He doesn't say a word. He walks into the living room where Sarah is scrolling on her phone, her face illuminated by the cool blue light. He doesn't look at her. He just extends his hand and holds out the letter. She looks up, her eyes annoyed by the interruption, then confused by his stillness. She takes the letter. He watches her face as she reads it. He braces for the explosion, the tears, the accusations, the panic. He is prepared for, "What have you done?" or "We're ruined." Instead, he gets nothing. He watches the blood drain from her face. Her expression doesn't become one of anger or sadness. It just empties. It becomes a perfect, smooth mask. She finishes reading. She slowly folds the letter, hands it back to him, and then turns her head to stare at the black, reflective surface of the television screen. She doesn't speak. The silence is absolute. It is the sound of the last string snapping. This is the true bottom. This is the moment the last illusion of control evaporates. His job, the stable path his family was so proud of, is now revealed to be utterly insufficient. It cannot save him. And his relationship, the shared bunker where they hid from the past, has just been breached. Her silence is not a comfort. It is a confirmation. It is the sound of her emotional departure. He is completely, existentially alone. He sinks down, not onto the couch, but onto the floor, his back against the wall. He can feel the rough fibers of the carpet. He watches a dust mote dance in the last sliver of afternoon light cutting through the blinds. He feels a profound, heavy apathy. It's not a decision to give up. It is the realization that he has already lost. There are no moves left on the board. This is the state of mind Albert Camus called the realization of the absurd. Julian's life, he now sees, is the life of Sisyphus. He is the man condemned to push a rock up a hill for eternity. Every morning he wakes up. He puts on the waiter's uniform. He pushes the rock, serving tables, smiling, refilling water glasses all day. At night he comes home, and the rock rolls back to the bottom. The rock is his debt, his past, his shame. His job was not a life. It was the meaningless labor required to sustain the punishment. But today the letter has added a new, cruel twist. The gods have just informed Sisyphus that his wages are being garnished. The labor itself, the one act he had left, is now being seized. The sheer pointless joke of it all settles on him a weight heavier than any debt. This is not just sadness. This is a cognitive shift. This is the state of learned paralysis, when a person or any animal is subjected to repeated, inescapable pain. The mind doesn't just learn to endure, it learns to stop trying. It learns that action is the trigger for pain. Julian's mind has been running this equation for 5 years. Action, flying, led to catastrophic failure. Action, dreaming, led to conflict at home. His brain, in a desperate act of self-preservation, formed a logical conclusion. The only way to avoid more pain is to stop taking action. His job as a waiter was not a choice. It was the physical manifestation of this learned paralysis. It was the smallest, safest, most repetitive non-action he could find. It was a form of hiding. And now, the letter has proven that even hiding is no longer an option. The punishment will find him anyway. He sits on the floor. The sun goes down. The room becomes dark, lit only by the faint glow of the streetlights outside. Sarah has not moved. She is a statue in the chair, a monument to the end of their shared illusion. Julian's mind is quiet. The sharp voice of his inner critic is gone because there is nothing left to criticize. The voice of his family's pride is gone. There is only this vacuum. He feels no anger, no fear, not even sadness. He feels nothing. He genuinely, deep in his bones, in his blood, believes that he has no control over his life. He is an object, and the world will now do with him as it pleases. When the debt from your past finally arrives to collect your future, and you are convinced absolutely that you have no power left to stop it, where can help possibly come from? Hours pass. Julian remains on the floor, a piece of furniture in his own dark apartment. Eventually he hears the quiet sounds of Sarah giving up, the click of a light switch, the running of water in the bathroom, the soft, final click of the bedroom door. She has retreated, wordlessly, into sleep. The apartment is now his. The silence is no longer a shared, tense standoff. It is a vacuum. He waits another 10 minutes, listening to the building settle, to the distant sound of traffic. He is completely, totally alone in the dark. Slowly, stiffly, he pushes himself up from the floor. He does not go to the bedroom. He walks, instead, to the small utility closet by the front door, the one that smells faintly of dust and old coats. He opens it. Pushed behind the vacuum cleaner and a box of cleaning supplies is his real life. It's a chair, a high-fidelity yoke, a throttle quadrant and rudder pedals, all wired to a dedicated computer monitor, crammed onto a tiny shelf. He slides into the seat, the tight space forcing his knees against the wall. This is his sanctuary, this is his shame. He turns on the monitor, the sudden glow illuminating his face, and the voice is there, instantly. It's the cold, rational judge that lives in his head. This is what you do, it whispers, its tone laced with contempt. Your life has just been officially garnished, your companion has abandoned you, and you come here. To play. A grown man, hiding in a closet, pretending to be the one thing the world loudly and clearly told you that you are not. This is pathetic. He closes his eyes. Just for a second. He is so tired. But he doesn't get up. His fingers find the switches on the throttle quadrant. He boots up the simulation. This isn't a game. It is the full complex flight management system of an Airbus A380. He begins the procedure. APU bleed. Check. Engine start sequence initiated. He is not playing. He is working. We must watch this moment with extreme precision. We are seeing in this tiny closet the profound and fundamental difference between labor and play. His job at the restaurant is labor. It is the joyless, repetitive, Sisyphean task he performs to survive, the act of pushing the rock up a hill just so he can do it again tomorrow. It is a slow death. It drains his life force. This, however, is what Alan Watts would call serious play. This is not a frivolous distraction. It is the act of engaging in a deeply complex and challenging task for its own sake. It is not for a paycheck. It is not for survival. It is for the sheer, unadulterated joy of mastery. His mind, which was a numb, grey vacuum on the living room floor, is now a precision instrument. His focus is total. His body, moments ago slumped in apathy, is now energized, his movements economical and sure. He is, in this closet, fully alive. He sets up a scenario. Engine number 3 failure during takeoff from a high-altitude airport with a 15-knot crosswind and reported wind shear on the climb-out. His fingers move across the panels. His eyes scan the instruments. He is running checklists, managing the severe thrust asymmetry, compensating for the loss of lift. His lips moving silently. V1, rotate. He is not just flying, he is managing systems. He is obsessively, meticulously mastering the thousands of interlocking processes that keep 400 tons of metal in the sky. He is not pretending to be a pilot. He is studying the physics of failure, the logic of emergency. This is not an escape. This is a deep, intellectual engagement with the one thing he understands, the one thing that makes the world make sense to him. This is his art, but the world has taught him to be ashamed of it. This is the central tragedy. His society, his family, his companion, and his own internal judge have all reached a unanimous verdict. This activity is useless. It is dreaming. It is a waste of time. It is a pathological echo of his greatest failure, the thing that caused the debt. We are watching a perfect modern allegory of Plato's cave. That restaurant, that stable job, that real world his father is so proud of, that is the cave. That is the world of shadows, the flickering grey performance of stability and safety that he mistakes for his life. This closet, this tiny, cramped, shameful space, this is the real world. This is the world of light. This is where he is engaging with truth, with physics, with systems, with his actual self. The world has told him the shadows are real, and the sun is a child's fantasy. He remembers vividly the one time Sarah found a printed diagram of an A380's hydraulic system. He had hidden it under a stack of mail. She found it. The look on her face was not anger. It was a deep, visceral fear, the look of someone seeing a loved one relapse. "Julian, what is this?" she had whispered. "We agreed. No more. This. It's just a game. Please, just let it go. It almost destroyed us." Her words were the final nail. She had confirmed his deepest, darkest fear, that this thing he loved, this only thing he loved, was not a passion. It was an illness. It was a character flaw. It was the source of all their pain. He had promised her he would stop, and then he simply learned to hide it better, adding a layer of deceit to his shame. This is the catastrophic result of his conditioning. He has been taught to confuse his medicine with his poison. The real world of the restaurant, the world of garnishments and silent, resentful companions, is the thing that is killing him. This fantasy in the closet, this complex mastery of systems, is the only thing keeping him alive. The one place where he is competent, focused, and purposeful is the one place he is convinced he must hide from the world. The world demanded he become a realistic waiter, and in doing so has forced his true, authentic self underground into a utility closet and labeled it as a source of shame. He has been conditioned to despise the only part of him that is not a failure. He flies the simulation for 3 hours. He practices the emergency landing, the massive jet touching down flawlessly on the runway, the crosswind perfectly managed. He feels a single, solitary second of peace, of rightness. Then he powers down the system. The monitors go dark. The glow dies. The room is just a closet again, smelling of dust and old coats. He steps back out into the dark, silent apartment, the ghost of a person. He is a master in the dark and a failure in the light. He closes the closet door, hiding his real self away. What if the key to his entire future isn't the life he is being paid for, but the one he feels so profoundly guilty for loving? Miles away in the fluorescent calm of a downtown office building, a different kind of mind is at work. The world is not a fog to this person, it is a spreadsheet. This is Mrs. Finch. She is a mid-level manager at a regional bank. Her office is sterile, organized and silent, save for the precise, quiet click of her keyboard. She is not warm. She is not empathetic. She is an architect of numbers, a high priestess of the balance sheet. She exists in a world of pure, unadulterated consequence. While Julian is drowning in the emotional story of his debt, Mrs. Finch is the person who manages debt for a living. She does not deal in shame or regret. She deals in assets, liabilities, and protocols. She is the embodiment of the system that is currently crushing Julian. She is reviewing a file. A small business loan defaulted, a taco truck that failed after 6 months. She scans the numbers, her expression neutral. She is not feeling pity for the dreamer who failed. She is analyzing a system that broke. She calls a junior analyst into her office, pointing to the screen. "This Miller loan," she says, her voice flat. "It's a total loss. But it is not a tragedy. It is a non-performing asset. The investment failed to generate monetary ROI. That is the fact. Our job is not to cry about it. Our job is to liquidate it and then to extract the data. I want a full breakdown of the failure. supply chain costs, cash flow burn rate, the demographics of that location. A $50,000 failure is an expensive lesson, but it only becomes a waste if we fail to update our underwriting protocol. The analyst just nods, intimidated. Mrs. Finch continues, turning back to her keyboard. "You see, Mr. Henderson," she says, almost to herself, "the client is trapped because he keeps trying to fix the past. He's paying emotional interest on a dead account. The only way forward is to reclassify the event. Stop seeing it as a personal failure and start seeing it as a data set. The past is not a ghost that haunts you. It is a depreciated asset. You liquidate it, you pull the data, and you move on." This is her entire philosophy. This is the phrase, the concept, the intellectual scalpel that is, in a few short days, going to cut Julian's life wide open. This is the weapon, currently being sharpened, that will give him a way to finally face his own past. We are watching a mind that operates on a completely different frequency. Julian's world is a chaos of shame, memory, and subjective pain. Her world is a grid. This is the rigorous application of what the Stoics, like Marcus Aurelius, called logos, the divine ordering principle of reason. Mrs. Finch operates from a place of radical objectivity. She insists on seeing the event naked, as it truly is, stripped of all the emotional drama, the tears of the taco truck owner, the story of the broken dream. To her, that is just noise, a layer of interpretation that obscures the fact. The only thing that is real is the system and the data. Her calm does not come from being cold-hearted. It comes from being devastatingly clear. She has performed the primary discipline of the Stoic. She has separated the event from the story about the event. The event is a loss. The story is that it's a tragedy. She rejects the story and deals only with the event. This is why she is at peace and Julian is in torment. Julian's entire identity is fused with his failure. He believes he is the failure. He cannot separate "I failed" from "I am a failure." Mrs. Finch, in her analytical way, understands this to be a catastrophic error in accounting. To her, the taco truck owner is not the failed loan. He is an operator who ran a bad equation. The loan is the loan. The person is the person. This separation gives her immense power. She can analyze the failure of the taco truck with ruthless precision because she is not, in doing so, analyzing the soul of the owner. She is simply analyzing the data. Julian has never been offered this distinction. His entire world, his family, his companion, has confirmed that he is his failure. She is, in essence, viewing the world as the philosopher Baruch Spinoza demanded, sub specie eternitatis, or under the aspect of eternity. She does not see this failed loan as a personal, isolated tragedy. She sees it as a geometric proof that has reached its inevitable conclusion. X, a bad location, plus Y, high supply costs, equals Z, failure. It is not good or bad. It simply is. It is a logical fact in the universe, as objective as gravity. While Julian is trapped in the subjective hell of, what does this failure say about me? Mrs. Finch operates in the objective, cool reality of what is this failure. She finds peace in the balance sheet, because the balance sheet, unlike a human heart, never ever lies to you. It is pure, unfiltered reality. It is the world stripped of the illusions and self-deceptions that cause human suffering. Her mind is a fortress against the very thing that has broken Julian, ambiguity. She has organized her reality into a binary system. Is it productive, or is it not? Is it an asset, or is it a liability? This rigid, logical framework is her version of a moral code. It is not cruel, it is just, it is predictable. In her world, there are no ghosts. There are no what-ifs. There are only what is. There are no failed dreams. There are only investment theses that were proven incorrect. This language, this way of seeing, is the source of her power. It is an armor against the chaos of human emotion. She is the antithesis of the world Julian lives in, a world where every action is drowning in the fog of feeling and fear. This is the fundamental difference between the two of them. Julian is defined by his past. He is a slave to its emotional power. Mrs. Finch mines the past. She extracts its useful data and then simply discards the rest. He is an artist of suffering, endlessly painting the same dark picture of his failure. She is a mathematician, solving an equation, checking the answer, and moving on to the next problem. He is drowning in the story of his debt. She is the clinical architect of the system that manages it. These two people, a man defined by his chaos and a woman who worships order, are on a collision course. What happens when the fog finally meets the grid? The wage garnishment letter is a physical weight in his pocket. It feels heavy, sharp at the corners, a rectangular anchor of reality. Julian is walking, but he doesn't remember deciding to leave the apartment. His feet have just carried him here, to the one place that represents the system that is crushing him. The bank. It is a last, pathetic animal instinct. He is an animal in a trap, and in his final blind panic, he is throwing himself at the trapper. He has no plan. He has no hope. He is just surrendering to the source. He sits in the lobby, which is all marble and glass and quiet, humming efficiency. It smells clean, like paper and polish, the complete opposite of his life, which smells of stale cooking grease and old dust. He feels filthy. He feels like a criminal, waiting to be sentenced. "Mr. Morales," a voice cuts through his numb haze. He's called into a sterile, glass-walled office. And there she is, Mrs. Finch. She is exactly as we saw her before. Neutral, precise, her posture perfect. She is the physical embodiment of the balance sheet. She gestures to the chair, not unkindly, but without an ounce of warmth. She is a doctor about to examine a specimen. Her eyes are already on her monitor. She sees the file. She sees the garnishment, the flashing red numbers. She sees the source. "A flight school," she says. Her voice is flat. It is not a question. It is not a judgment. It is a classification. It is the first line item on a long list of his failures. This is the moment he breaks. The 5 years of silence, the shame, the hiding, the endless agonizing loop, it all comes pouring out. He is not talking to a banker. He is confessing to a void. "I know," he whispers, his voice cracking, the words tearing out of him. "I know, it's been following me for 5 years. It won't let go." He is looking at his hands, not at her. "It's my pet ghost. I feed it with restaurant tips." He lets out a short, bitter, broken laugh, a sound that is half a sob. He expects her to show pity or disgust. He expects her to recite a sterile script about financial responsibility. He expects her to call security. Instead, she stops typing. She turns her head and looks at him, really looks at him, and her expression is not pity. It is a sharp, analytical curiosity, as if he is a fascinating, broken piece of machinery. She leans forward just an inch, and her voice cuts through his fog of shame like a scalpel. "You're using the wrong terminology," she says. Julian looks up, confused. "What?" "You're using the wrong terminology," she repeats, her voice sharp, impatient, but not cruel. "The past is not a ghost. Ghosts are emotional. They're unstable. They aren't real." She taps the monitor. "This debt is very real, and the past that created it is not a ghost. It is a non-performing asset." Julian just stares. The words don't compute. They are from a language he doesn't speak. What?" "An asset," she clarifies, as if explaining to a simple child. "You invested $50,000 to acquire a skill. The investment failed to provide a monetary return. Therefore, it is a non-performing asset. You are still paying emotional interest on it, on top of the financial interest. That is a bad investment strategy, Mr. Morales. What we just witnessed was not a financial consultation. It was an act of profound philosophical liberation. Mrs. Finch, in her sterile, logical way, just handed Julian a new world. The philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein argued that the limits of our world are defined by the limits of our language. We are all trapped inside a game of words, and we live by the rules of that game. Julian has been trapped for 5 years in the language game of tragedy. In this game, he is the failed pilot, the victim, the ghost-haunted man. The rules of this game are shame, regret, and paralysis. His family and Sarah are all playing this same miserable game with him. They all know the rules. Don't talk about the failure. Be realistic. Settle for stability. Mrs. Finch does not play that game. She has just, with the brutal efficiency of a database query, dragged him into a new one, the language game of the balance sheet. And the rules of this game are completely different. The rules are not shame and regret. The rules are profit, loss, data, and liquidation. In this new world, a non-performing asset is not a moral failing. It is a category. It is an objective, neutral problem to be solved, not a personal cross to be endlessly, miserably carried. She has just given him a language to describe his life that does not, for the first time, include a judgment on his character. He is not the failure. The asset is the failure. This is the absolute core of the Stoic practice, the lesson of Epictetus. It is not the events themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them. Julian's crash and burn at the check ride was an event. It happened, and it is over. But his judgment on that event, the terminology he wrapped it in, words like ghost, shame, failure, trauma, that is the poison that has been slowly killing him. Mrs. Finch has just handed him a new, sterile, non-judgmental word. She has given him a rope made of pure accounting. By changing the language, she has given him a pathway to changing his judgment. She has created the first tiny crack in the wall of his subjective prison. He doesn't know what to do with this word yet, but the word itself is a form of light. It has separated the man from the problem, and if it's just an asset, it's not a ghost. It can be touched, it can be measured, and maybe, just maybe, it can be liquidated. He's back at the restaurant. It's Saturday night, the busiest shift of the week. The dining room is a symphony of noise, the clatter of silverware on porcelain, the murmur of 100 conversations, the sharp, percussive pop of a champagne cork. Julian is moving through it, a ghost in a waiter's uniform. His body is here. His hands are steady as he pours a deep red wine for a table of laughing, well-dressed people. His mouth forms the correct words. "Will there be anything else for you this evening?" But his mind is a million miles away. It is back in that sterile glass office, stuck on a single alien phrase, non-performing asset. The words echo, repeating on a loop, cutting through the noise of the dining room. Non-performing asset. It's a key for a lock he never knew existed. His shift is a masterpiece of muscle memory. He delivers steaks, clears plates, smiles and nods, all while his conscious mind is elsewhere, obsessively turning this new concept over and over. Non-performing asset. He contrasts it with the words he's used to. Ghost. Trauma. Failure. Shame. Those words are heavy, wet, and emotional. They are words of paralysis. They are words that demand pity. He thinks of his father's voice, dripping with that condescending pride. He thinks of Sarah's eyes, wide with fear, begging him to stay small and safe. Their reactions are based on pity. They see him as a broken thing, a man to be managed, a victim of a great tragedy. And he has accepted this role. He has played the part of the broken man flawlessly for 5 years, because their pity was, in a twisted way, a form of comfort. It was validation that his pain was real. But Mrs. Finch, she did not offer pity. She offered classification. She did not treat him as a victim, she treated him as a bad investor. She didn't look at him with sympathy. She looked at him as if he were an equation that had been solved incorrectly. And in her cold, objective, inhuman way, she was the first person in 5 years who had not treated him like a child. She was the first person who had spoken to him as if he still had agency, as if this failure was not a life sentence but a line item, as if he was not a man defined by a ghost, but an operator who had mismanaged a file. The revelation is so profound, it makes him dizzy. He almost drops a tray. He is not a haunted man. He is a man with a bookkeeping problem. This is, in essence, a personal Copernican revolution, the kind of profound, vertigo-inducing shift in perspective that Immanuel Kant described. For 5 years, Julian's entire universe has revolved around a fixed, massive, dark star, his failure. Every thought, every action, every decision, his relationship, his job, all of it was just a tiny, cold planet held in orbit by the immense gravitational pull of that one past event. The failure was the center of his reality. What Mrs. Finch just did was to suggest that the failure is not the center. He is. His mind is. His judgment is. The failure is just a piece of cold, dead rock. It is not the sun. He is the sun. He is the one giving it gravitational power. He has spent 5 years revolving around his own past, and she has just handed him the math that proves he doesn't have to. This is the moment Plato called periagogy. It is the turning of the soul. He has been the prisoner in the cave, chained, staring at the wall. The shadow of his failure, his ghost, has been the only reality he has known. His family and Sarah, his fellow prisoners, have been staring at it with him, whispering about how big and terrifying the shadow is. Mrs. Finch is the stranger who has kicked the back of his chair, forcing his head to turn. She has forced him to look away from the shadow and, for the first time, to see the fire that casts it. The fire, he is realizing, is his own mind. The fire is his terminology. The shadow is not the thing itself, it is a projection. It is a story. And if it's a story, it can be rewritten. If it's a projection, the source can be changed. The seed of doubt has been planted, but it's not a seed of hope. It's a seed of something far more corrosive and powerful, a question. He is suddenly painfully aware of the performance of his life. He sees his steady hand pouring the wine and realizes it's an act. He sees his polite smile and realizes it's a mask. He looks at the diners, laughing and arguing about their own lives, and he is no longer one of them. He is an observer. He has been given a glimpse of the scaffolding behind the stage, the code beneath the program. He finishes his shift, the apron coming off. The routine would be to go home, sink into the couch, and wait for the numb anesthetic of sleep. Not tonight. He spent 5 years running from his past, and now, for the first time in his life, he has a reason to run towards it. He has to go back. He has to know. He has to ask the one question that is now burning a hole in his mind. How do you liquidate an asset? He doesn't sleep. Sleep is impossible. His mind is a racetrack, and that one phrase, non-performing asset, is the only car on the track, circling endlessly. He is at war with himself. One part of him, the old, familiar, beaten-down part, is screaming that this is a cruel joke, that he's a waiter, not a CEO, and that a banker's cold terminology is just another way of calling him a failure. It's a word from a world he doesn't belong to. It's an insult, dressed in jargon. But another part of him, a tiny, new, insistent voice, is clinging to that phrase as if it's the only piece of solid ground in a universe of fog. It's a word that doesn't judge. It's a word that analyzes. It's a problem, not a verdict. He gets up before dawn, before Sarah. He can't stay in the apartment. He can't go to the restaurant. He just walks. He walks for hours as the city wakes up, the sky turning from inky black to a bruised industrial purple. He is terrified. But for the first time, his fear is not the familiar paralyzing apathy. It is a new sharp electric fear. It is the fear of action. He is afraid that if he goes back to that bank, she will laugh at him, that she will see him for what he is, an imposter, a waiter in street clothes trying to talk about assets while his wages are being garnished. The humiliation of it is a physical burning heat in his chest. But the alternative is to go back to the couch, back to the silence, back to the fog. The alternative is to accept the garnishment and die. The bank doors open at 9. He is standing there on the polished marble floor at 9:01. He is shaking. He looks like a man who hasn't slept, which is exactly what he is. The receptionist looks at him, a flicker of concern. He doesn't go to the loans desk. He walks straight to her. "I need to see Mrs. Finch." His voice is rough. "Do you have an appointment?" "No," Julian says. "But I was here yesterday, about a file." He can't bring himself to say the word garnishment. "Please, it's not about the loan, it's a question." The receptionist, seeing something in his eyes that is not desperation, but a kind of painful, rigid intent, picks up the phone. He is told to wait. The wait is the longest 10 minutes of his life. He is fighting the urge to bolt, to run back to the safety of his miserable routine. Then her office door opens. "Mr. Morales." She is standing there, her face as neutral as a concrete wall. He walks in. He sits. The office is silent. She is waiting. He can feel his heart hammering against his ribs. A trapped bird. He is supposed to be the broken debtor. That is his role. But he has to break the script. He leans forward, his hands twisting together. "Mrs. Finch, I was here yesterday. About the garnishment. She just nods, her eyes on her monitor. I'm aware. He takes a ragged breath. This is it. Forget the loan. Forget the consolidation. That's not why I'm here. Her fingers stop typing. She looks at him. You said something. Yesterday. You said, my past. My debt. You called it a non-performing asset. He says the words out loud, and they feel strange in his mouth, like a foreign language. He has her full attention. Her gaze is not warm, but it is total. I've been thinking about it all night, he pushes on, the words tumbling out. I don't know what that means. Not really. It's just a word. But it's the first word that... It's not failure, it's not shame. He looks up, meeting her eyes for the first time. The pride is gone. The shame is gone. There is only a raw, desperate need to understand. I need you to tell me what it means. I need you to explain it. And you said liquidate. You said you liquidate it. He's almost whispering. How? How do you do that? How do you liquidate a ghost? This is the moment. This is the true beginning of his journey. This is the Socratic pivot. For 5 years, Julian thought he knew what his problem was. He was a failure. He was a fraud. He was a ghost. His entire identity was built on this knowledge. And now, by walking into this office and asking this question, he has just performed the first, most terrifying, and most crucial act of wisdom. He has admitted to himself and to another that he knows nothing. He is a blank slate. He has finally, after half a decade of certainty in his own worthlessness, achieved a state of profound, powerful ignorance. He has asked for a teacher. He is no longer the victim. He is the student. This is what the Zen masters call shoshin, the beginner's mind. To learn to truly see the world, you must first empty your cup. Julian's cup has been overflowing for 5 years with a toxic, bitter brew of shame, resentment, and self-pity. He has been defined by it. It was the only thing he had. But by walking in and asking, what does this mean? He has just, for the first time, set the cup down. He has turned it over. He has emptied it. He has discarded the story of his failure, the ghost, the shame, the tragedy, and is now finally ready to receive the lesson. He is open. He is raw. He is a beginner. And in this moment, he has more power than he has had in 5 years. He is no longer a debtor begging for mercy. He is a philosopher asking for truth, and he has no idea if this banker, this woman of numbers, will laugh him out of the room or answer. Mrs. Finch stares at him. The silence in the office is absolute, a pressurized vacuum. Julian feels the urge to apologize, to retract the question, to shrink back into his role as the debtor. But he holds his ground. He has asked, and now he is waiting. Finally, she leans back in her chair, a tiny, almost imperceptible shift. She is no longer looking at him as a file, but as a problem. You don't liquidate a ghost, she says, her voice as dry as paper. You're still using the wrong words. You liquidate an asset. The ghost is what you call it when you refuse to do the accounting. You're paying emotional interest on a dead account, Mr. Morales. That's the definition of a bad investment. She lets the words hang in the air, a cold, hard judgment. Julian is confused. But it's gone. The money is gone. The thing is gone. It failed. The money is gone, she corrects him, her precision ruthless. But the investment is not. You bought $50,000 worth of education. You are now treating that education as a total loss. Why? Because you're trying to forget it. You are trying to bury the asset, but you can't. It's on your books. It's right here. She taps the screen. And it's on your emotional books, which is far more expensive. You can't bury an asset. You can't forget it. The only way out is to liquidate it. Julian shakes his head, his frustration mounting. That's the part I don't understand. What does that mean? What is there to liquidate? It's just failure. It's just shame. She sighs, a small impatient puff of air. It's the first non-neutral sound he's heard her make. You are still focused on the wrong ledger, she says. You are obsessed with the cash flow. You failed to generate a monetary return. Fine. That account is closed. But what about the other return? What about the data? You don't liquidate by forgetting. You liquidate by re-evaluating. An intelligent investor, when an asset fails, doesn't just cry about the money. He sits down, opens the books, and he mines the failure. He finds out why it failed. He pulls every last piece of data from the wreckage. She leans forward again, and her voice drops, becoming even more precise, more pointed. So, let's try this. Ditch the emotional ledger for 1 second. Tell me, Mr. Morales, what did you learn from that $50,000 investment? What was the ROI in data, even if the ROI in cash was 0? The question hits Julian like a physical blow. It's as if the air has been punched out of his chest. He opens his mouth to answer, and nothing comes out. He searches his mind. What did he learn? He learned that he was a fraud. He learned that he wasn't good enough. He learned that his family was right. He learned that shame was a cold, heavy thing. He realizes with a dawning, sickening horror that he learned nothing. He has spent 5 years suffocating in the emotion of the failure, but he has never, not for 1 second, analyzed the failure itself. He has never asked why he froze on the check ride. Was it a lack of preparation? Was it a specific gap in his knowledge? Was it a manageable panic response? He doesn't know. He never ever looked. He just ran. This is the moment the philosopher Baruch Spinoza would have identified as the critical turning point. Julian has been living a life of inadequate ideas. He has been a slave to his passions, his shame, his fear, his resentment. These are inadequate because they are cloudy, emotional, and reactive. They are the fog. Mrs. Finch, with her brutal, logical question, is forcing him to move toward adequate ideas. She is forcing him to apply reason. She is asking him to stop feeling his failure and start understanding it. To Spinoza, freedom is not the absence of problems. Freedom is the understanding of necessity. Julian is not free until he understands the mechanics of his failure. He cannot be free of the ghost until he turns it into a data set. He is still silent. The answer is a horrifying, echoing nothing. He sees it. He finally sees his pattern. His loop of misery wasn't a curse. It wasn't a ghost. It was a habit. It was the habit of bad accounting. For 5 years, he has been obsessively staring at the 0 in the cash return column, using it as proof of his worthlessness. And in all that time, he has never, ever looked at the data return column. He never did the post-mortem. He never analyzed the crash. He just mourned it. He realizes his entire life, his job, his relationship, it has all been an elaborate, exhausting defense mechanism to avoid asking that one simple, terrifying question. Why? This is the discipline of the Stoic. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his journal, "Look at the thing itself stripped bare, see it for what it is." Mrs. Finch has just forced Julian to do exactly that. The event was, "I failed a check ride." The story Julian added to it, the emotional drama, was, "And therefore I am a worthless failure whose life is over." She is forcing him to strip away that second part, that self-inflicted judgment, and look only at the first. I failed a check ride. As a naked fact, as a piece of data. He feels a click in his mind, a painful structural shift. He finally understands. His problem is not the failure. His problem is his refusal to analyze it. Julian now sees his pattern. He was focused on the drama, not the data. But as he sits there, the truth of his new, terrible insight settling on him, a new kind of coldness grips him. It's one thing to see the pattern. It's a completely different thing to have the courage to break it. He goes home, but he is a different man. He isn't the slumped, apathetic ghost who left that morning. He is a man with a task. He is energized, almost manic, with a cold, terrifying sense of purpose. He has an assignment from the high priestess of the balance sheet: find the data. He walks past Sarah, who is on the couch lost in the glow of her phone. She looks up, surprised to see him home so early, but he doesn't stop, doesn't explain. He goes straight to the closet, to his simulator. He closes the door. This is not the shameful retreat of last night. This is an audit. He is an investigator, and this is the scene of the crime. He boots up the system, his hands steady. His internal monologue is sharp, clipped, an imitation of Mrs. Finch's precision. Okay, Data. Not drama, just data. What happened on the check ride? What were the facts? He pulls up the flight logs from his training, files he hasn't looked at in 5 years. He tries to recreate the exact parameters of the failed test. A high-density altitude takeoff, a simulated engine failure after V1, a complex instrument approach he had to fly by hand. He is trying to be a machine. He is trying to be objective, to be an analyst looking at a data set. He starts the simulation, he flies the procedure. And for a few minutes, it works. He's focused. He's noting the variables. He sees a small error in his initial setup, a miscalculation of the wind component. There, he thinks, a small spark of victory. That's data. But then, as he tries to correct the course, the simulation's virtual instructor, a flat computerized voice, says, "You are off your assigned altitude." A neutral statement, a piece of data. And in that instant, the dam breaks. The sound, the flat, judgmental tone of the computer unlocks the feeling. It's a sensory flood. He is suddenly, violently back in the cockpit of that Cessna 5 years ago. He can smell the sun-baked vinyl of the seat, the sharp tang of aviation fuel. He can feel the sweat on his palms, making the yoke feel slippery, insecure. He can hear the voice of his real instructor, not angry, but worse, disappointed. That heavy, paternal sigh. "Julian, you're chasing the needle again. Just relax. Fly the airplane." But he couldn't relax. The harder he tried, the tighter his grip became, the more he overcorrected. And then, the panic. The cold, liquid dread that started in his stomach and flooded his entire body, making his thoughts thick and slow. The voice in his head, the cold, sharp judge which had been silent, awakens with a vengeance. "What are you doing?" it hisses. "Data? You think you're an analyst? You think you're Mrs. Finch? Look at you. You're sweating, in a closet. You're a waiter. You're not an analyst. You're the specimen. You are the failure. You can't analyze this. You are this." The logic from the bank, the non-performing asset, which felt so liberating an hour ago, now feels like a cruel academic joke. It's a thin paper shield against this tidal wave of visceral physical memory. The feeling of the failure is 1,000 times stronger than the idea of analyzing it. He can't be objective about it. It's not data, it's him. He slams his fist against the tiny shelf, the monitor rattling. He has failed again. He has just failed at failing correctly. He tried to be logical, and the ghost just proved that it is, in fact, the one in charge. What we are witnessing is the collision between intellect and habit. Julian has been given a new, superior idea by Mrs. Finch, but he is trying to use that single idea to fight 5 years of deeply entrenched habit. The philosopher David Hume argued that reason is and ought only to be the slave of the passions. We are creatures of feeling, of instinct, of habit. We are not the rational, logical beings we pretend to be. Julian's attempt to be a cold analyst was an act of reason. But the passion of his shame, the habit of his self-contempt is the master, and the master just put the slave back in its place. His new logic was a single candle, and his trauma is a hurricane. The hurricane didn't even notice the flame before it was extinguished. This is the great painful lesson of change. We believe that the aha moment, the intellectual epiphany, is the victory. It is not. It is merely the permission to start the work. As Aristotle taught, virtue and change are not a matter of knowing what is right. They are a matter of hexis, of habit. A person becomes brave not by reading a book about courage, but by the slow, repetitive, painful practice of acting bravely. Julian's aha moment in the bank was real, but his habit, his neurological default, is to feel shame. He has a 5-year-old, deeply worn neural pathway for self-contempt. His new idea of analyzing data is a tiny, new trail, barely visible in the jungle. He just tried to run a marathon on a broken leg. Simply because someone told him what a marathon was, he shuts down the simulator, the screen fading to black. He is left in the dark, cramped closet, but the sanctuary is gone. It is now just a closet. It is the scene of his latest, and perhaps most pathetic, failure. He had the map. He had the key from Mrs. Finch. He put it in the lock and he was too weak, too broken to even turn it. The despair that settles on him now is a new, more profound kind of despair. It is the despair of a man who has been given the cure and has just proven himself to be allergic to it. The logic wasn't enough, the intellect wasn't enough. What in the world did he not understand about real change? He's back at the bank the next day. The humiliation is a physical taste like ash in his mouth. He is a beggar for the second time, but this time he's begging for a different kind of loan. He's begging for an answer. He sits in front of Mrs. Finch. His hands clench so hard his knuckles are white. "It didn't work," he says, the words quiet, defeated. "I tried. I went home. I tried to do what you said, to find the data." He looks at the polished surface of her desk. "I can't. It's not data. It's a feeling. The moment I try to look at it, the shame. It's too strong. The logic doesn't work. The feelings are the truth. The ghost is real. It's not an asset. It's me." He has laid his final broken card on the table. He has admitted in the temple of logic that his emotions are stronger than his reason. He expects her to dismiss him, to tell him he's in the wrong department, that he needs a priest or a therapist, not a banker. Mrs. Finch, however, does not look sympathetic. She looks annoyed. She is a mathematician who has just watched a student try to solve an algebra problem by crying on the paper. "Of course it didn't work," she says, her voice sharp. "Your entire premise is wrong. You are still focused on yourself. You are still obsessing about your feelings. You are treating this like a therapy session. You think liquidation is a metaphor for emotional catharsis. It is not." She taps her keyboard, bringing up his file, the red numbers flashing. "I am not a therapist, Mr. Morales. I am a banker. Liquidation is an economic term. It is not about how you feel about the asset. It is about how you make that asset productive." Julian is lost. "But how can it be productive? It's a failure. It's in me." "That," she says, leaning forward, "is your fundamental catastrophic error. You are trying to use the data to fix yourself. You are trying to use this $50,000 education to make Julian Morales feel better." She scoffs, a tiny, sharp, bird-like sound. "That is a terrible return on investment. The data is not for you. It has no value for you. The data is for the market. The only, and I mean only, way to liquidate a non-performing asset is to find someone who will pay for the data it contains. You are trying to fix your past. The solution is to sell your past, your failure, your ghost, your shame. That is your inventory. That is the one thing you have that other people might need. Stop trying to cure yourself and start trying to serve someone else." This is the pivot. This is the great reversal. This is the core lesson of logotherapy, the philosophy of Viktor Frankl. Frankl, surviving the horrors of the Holocaust, realized that the human drive for meaning is not found in self-actualization or in looking inward as Julian has been obsessively doing. Meaning is not something we find, it is something we create. And it is almost always created in the act of auto-transcendence, the act of forgetting oneself and dedicating one's life to something or someone outside of oneself. Julian has been trapped in a prison of self-reflection, endlessly picking at the scab of his own trauma. Mrs. Finch is telling him the only way out is to stop looking at the scab and use the lesson it taught him to help someone else who is bleeding. She is telling him to transcend himself. Julian is stunned. "Serve who? Sell what?" he stammers. "I'm a waiter. I failed. What data do I have?" Mrs. Finch is impatient. "You are not listening," she says. "You are a man who invested $50,000 and an obscene amount of time in one highly specific goal, passing a pilot's check ride, and you failed." She raises a single sculpted eyebrow. "You have, therefore, become a world-class expert in one highly specific subject, how to fail a check ride. You know the exact psychology of that panic. You know the exact cascade of errors. You know what it feels like in your bones." She connects the dots for him, her voice like a laser. "Who needs that data? Every single student pilot on this planet who is terrified of failing the exact same way you did. That is your market. Your shame is their roadmap. Stop treating it like a curse and start treating it as your curriculum." She has, in one cold, logical paragraph, just handed him the definition of ikigai. This Japanese concept is the intersection, the perfect center point of 4 questions. What do you love? What are you good at? What can you be paid for? And what does the world need? Julian has been hiding what he loves, that complex, beautiful world of systems in his closet. He has been denying what he is good at, understanding the mechanics of flight, including the mechanics of failure. And Mrs. Finch has just handed him the other 2 circles, what the world needs, a way to manage the panic of the check ride, and what he can be paid for, the data from his own failure. She has, without knowing it, just given him the blueprint for a life of purpose. She has shown him that his curse is actually his calling, if only he has the courage to reclassify it. He is silent. His entire worldview has been inverted. He came in here to find a way to fix his past, to erase the failure. He wanted her to give him a magic pill, a logical trick, to make the ghost go away. Instead, she has told him the ghost is not a ghost. It is his single greatest asset. She has told him the solution is not to heal himself. The solution is to use his wound to heal others. He is not a patient. He is a doctor, one who has already survived the disease. This is the most terrifying idea he has ever encountered. It means stopping the one thing he has done for 5 years, focusing on himself, and starting the one thing he has never done, offering his greatest shame as a gift. The map to his freedom isn't about him at all, it's about them. He finally has the map. But can he possibly find the courage to take the first step? He is back in the closet, but the energy is completely different. The shame is still there, a low-frequency hum in the back of his mind, but it is being overpowered by a new, sharp and terrifying signal. Purpose. He is not hiding. He is not playing. He is, for the first time in 5 years, working. He is an auditor, and this is his file. He boots up the system, but instead of launching a simulation, he opens a blank text document. The white light of the empty page illuminates his face. He types. He writes a title, Why I Failed My Check Ride, a logical guide to liquidating panic. He looks at the words. They look foreign, audacious. As soon as the sentence is complete, as soon as his intention is made solid, the old voice awakens. It is not a whisper. It is a cold, amused and utterly confident laugh in the back of his skull. You, it scoffs. You are going to teach? A man whose wages are being garnished by the very institution he claims to be an expert on. You are a fraud, Julian. You are a waiter sitting in a closet writing a fantasy novel. This isn't data. This is arrogance. This is the same delusion that got you here. He closes his eyes, bracing against the familiar attack. It's not for me, he whispers to the empty closet. It's for them. It's inventory. He repeats the word Mrs. Finch gave him. Inventory. He tries to use it as a shield. He opens his eyes and forces his fingers back to the keyboard. He starts to type an outline. Section 1. The myth of natural talent versus the reality of systems management. He is so focused on the battle, on forcing the words onto the page, that he doesn't hear the creak of the closet door. He doesn't hear the soft footfall. He only senses the change in the air, the sudden presence of another person. He freezes. He turns, his heart seizing. Sarah is standing in the doorway, her hand on the knob, her eyes wide. She is in her bathrobe, her face pale with sleep and confusion. She looks past him, at the monitor, and her eyes narrow as she reads the title on the screen. Her reaction is not anger. It is something far worse. It is the same visceral, bone-deep terror he saw when she looked at the article on his phone. It is the hollow-eyed fear of a person watching a loved one relapse, of seeing the bottle in the hand of the recovering alcoholic. Julian, what is this? Her voice is a strained, broken whisper. What are you doing? It's 3 a.m. He can't speak. He can't explain. He can't articulate the cold logic of the bank. I thought, she continues, her voice trembling, I thought we agreed. No more. No more this. She gestures to the yoke, to the screen. It's just a game. It's a fantasy. Look at us. Look at what that did to us. She is pleading now, tears welling in her eyes. Julian, please. I can't go through that again. We are drowning. Please, just let it go. It's not real. Let it go. The voice in his head, his internal judge, roars with savage triumph. See? It screams, no longer a whisper but a verdict. Listen to her. She is the only one in this room telling the truth. She is your reality. You are not an analyst. You are an addict. You are a selfish dreamer and you are hurting her again. This isn't purpose. This is the same pathetic, childish fantasy. You are a failure. And now you are a liar too. You are the ghost in this house. He is trapped. He is pinned. The new fragile logic of Mrs. Finch, which felt so strong in the sterile light of the bank, now feels like a ridiculous, flimsy piece of paper. It is burning up in the face of this raw, real, emotional fire. Her fear is the external living proof that his internal voice is right. We are watching the central battle of any true transformation. This is the system fighting back. This is the powerful, inertial force of the status quo, and its sole purpose is to prevent change, to prevent evolution. It is a universal, impersonal energy of self-sabotage, and it is a brilliant strategist. It knows that it cannot defeat him with logic, so it attacks through his emotions. It attacks through the people he loves. Sarah's very real, very valid fear, born from their shared trauma, has just been weaponized. Her plea is not just her own. It is the plea of his entire past, of his old, broken identity, begging him to come back to the safety of the prison they all know. This is the psychological war that Carl Jung mapped. Julian has spent 5 years building a persona. Julian, the realistic waiter. It is a mask, a false self, but it is a functional one. It's the mask that allows him to survive his family's pity, to face the world. This new mission, this purpose, is a direct threat to that mask. It is an attempt to integrate his shadow, the failed pilot, and claim that failure not as a source of shame, but as a source of strength. And the persona, the stable waiter, the good son, the realistic partner, is now fighting for its very life. It is screaming at him, using his own voice and the voice of his companion, that this integration is not just insane, it is dangerous, it will destroy him. In this moment, Sarah is the other prisoner in Plato's cave. Julian has seen a glimpse of the light outside, the cold, logical sun of Mrs. Finch's world. He has come back into the darkness, and he is trying to tell his fellow prisoner, "The shadows aren't real, it's just an asset, we can liquidate it." And she is reacting exactly as Plato predicted, with terror. She is not just afraid for him, she is afraid of him. She thinks he has gone mad. Her plea for him to let it go is the desperate cry of the prisoner who is begging the other not to break the chains, because the chains, at least, are familiar. The chains are safe. He is caught. He is staring at the woman he loves, whose tears are validating his deepest, darkest fear. Is this new, fragile idea of purpose stronger than a lifetime of practiced self-hatred, and stronger than the fear in the eyes of the one person he has left? She is gone. The door clicks shut, a soft, final sound in the tiny, dark space. He is left with the echo of her words. Please let it go. It's not real. He is left with the image of her tears, the raw, undeniable proof of the pain he is causing. Her fear is the most real thing he has ever encountered. It is more real than the garnishment letter. It is more real than the cold, academic logic of the bank. Her terror is visceral, and it validates every single word his own internal judge has ever spoken. You are an addict. You are hurting her. You are a failure. He should, by all logic, shut down the monitor. He should delete the file. He should go to the bedroom, hold her, and promise to be the realistic man she needs, the stable dead waiter. That is the rational, good thing to do. That is the safe thing to do. But he doesn't move. He just sits there, pinned between two irreconcilable realities, the reality of her pain and the new, fragile but insistent reality of his purpose. He is at the point of existential schism. To choose her comfort, to choose the safety of the known prison, is to betray the only spark of truth he has felt in 5 years. To choose the mission, to choose this insane, illogical path of liquidating his shame, is to betray her, to accept that he is the monster she fears he is. He is trapped. Both choices are a form of death. One is the slow, suffocating death of the tomb. The other is the fast, terrifying death of the fall. He is paralyzed, his fingers hovering over the keyboard, his mind a static-filled void. This is the moment that defines a life. It is not a choice between good and bad. It is a choice between two different, mutually exclusive futures, both demanding a total sacrifice. This is the choice that no amount of logic can solve. His reason is screaming at him to go back to bed, to appease Sarah, to keep the peace. His past, all the evidence of his life, proves that this dreaming leads to ruin. But that other thing, that spark from the bank, that is not reason. It is not logic. It is an absurd, irrational call. It is a faith in a future that he has zero evidence for. This is the true test. It is a choice that cannot be justified by what has happened, only by what might happen. It is an act of pure, terrifying, unprovable creation. He looks at the screen, a logical guide to liquidating panic. The title is a joke. There is no logic here. There is only this cold, sick, terrifying pull. He puts his fingers back on the keys. He does not know what he is typing. The words just come. He finishes the guide. It is not a masterpiece. It is raw, honest, and ugly. It is a map of his own personal hell, translated into the cold language of systems. It is the story of his panic, his overcorrection, his internal collapse, but written as a technical manual. He finishes the last sentence. He reads it over once. It is the most honest thing he has ever written. It is his complete, excavated failure put on a single page. It is his $50,000 asset. He opens a web browser. He finds the aviation forum he used to read 5 years ago, a place he hasn't visited since the failure, a place full of real pilots, real instructors. He creates a new account, no name. The username is sysopfailure. He copies the text from his document. He creates a new post. He pastes his entire excavated shame into the text box for the whole world to see. His hand is shaking, not with fear, but with a strange, cold, electrical hum. He moves the mouse cursor. It hovers over the submit button. This is the jump. This is the moment of execution. This is the final, irreversible act. He is not just posting a guide. He is exposing his wound. He is cremating the ships, as the old commanders would say. He is destroying his only bridge back to the safety of his old broken identity. The internal voice is screaming its final, desperate warning. Don't. This is it, the last mistake. They will laugh at you. Sarah will know. This will finalize the ruin. He is no longer listening. He is not happy. He is not euphoric. He is simply empty. He is a man at the edge of a cliff who has just, calmly, decided to step off. He is terrifyingly, profoundly calm. He has made his choice. He is choosing the void. He is choosing the unknown, the absurd. He is choosing this path, not because he is guaranteed success, but because he is no longer capable of tolerating the prison. He exhales, a long, slow breath he feels he has been holding for 5 years, and he clicks the button. The page reloads. The post is live. The act is done. He has just set his entire life on fire, with no idea if anything will be left but the ashes. He didn't sleep. He sat in the closet, the monitor humming, watching the forum post. It sat there for an hour, nothing. 2 hours, nothing. Just his username, sysopfailure, mocking him. He was a man who had screamed his deepest secret into the void, and the void didn't even care enough to echo. The exhaustion was so profound it felt like a physical illness. He must have dozed, his head resting on the edge of the shelf, because he woke with a start to a new notification. A reply. His heart didn't leap. It seized. A cold, hard knot of dread. He clicked. The reply was not from a fellow student. It was from a user with a badge next to his name. Senior Flight Instructor. Julian's eyes scanned the text. It was short, brutal, and precise. More sim expert nonsense. Some of us fly in the real world. We don't need a guide on panic from someone who clearly couldn't handle the pressure. You didn't liquidate anything. You're just making excuses for choking. Get this garbage off the forum. The air left his lungs in a silent, painful rush. It was as if he had been physically struck. The new, fragile identity he had been building for the last 48 hours, the analyst, the consultant, the expert on failure, shattered into a billion pieces. It didn't just break, it evaporated, as if it had never existed at all. And the old voice, the real voice, the one he had known his whole life, returned with the force of a tidal wave. "See?" it whispered, its voice calm, absolute and triumphant. "I told you." Garbage. Excuses. Choke. He sees you. The real world sees you. You are a fraud, Julian, a waiter in a closet writing fan fiction about his own pathetic life. You are a joke. You took your private shame and in an act of profound arrogance you made it public. And they are laughing at you. She was wrong. The banker was wrong. There is no asset. There is only the failure, and you are the failure. This is the test. The true test is never the action, it's the reaction. As Marcus Aurelius would have seen it, the insult from this stranger, this senior flight instructor, is nothing. It is smoke and noise. It is an external event, an opinion from a person he will never meet. It has in itself no power. The power comes from Julian's own mind. The comment only hurts him, it only destroys him, because he secretly, profoundly agrees with it. The troll on the forum is just an external speaker for his own internal judge. He has just been given objective third-party validation for his deepest, darkest fear, that he is, and always will be, a fraud. He has not failed to write a guide. He has failed the first true test of his new philosophy. He did not receive the data objectively. He received it as a verdict. He is still staring at the screen, the words burning into his memory, when the closet door opens again. It's Sarah. She didn't go back to sleep. Her eyes are red-rimmed, her face pale and hard. She is no longer pleading. She is exhausted. She is at the end of her rope. "What are you doing, Julian?" she asks, her voice flat, dead. "It's almost morning. You're still in here with that." He can't speak. He can't defend himself. He is a child who has been caught. He just pathetically points at the screen. He wants her to see the comment. Maybe he wants her to defend him, to tell him the instructor is wrong. He wants her for 1 second to be on his side. She steps in. She leans over his shoulder, her hair brushing his cheek. She reads the brutal comment. He watches her face. He braces for her to say, "Don't listen to him." Instead, she is perfectly still. She reads it, and then she reads it again. A long, slow sigh escapes her, a sound of such profound, bottomless exhaustion that it chills him more than the comment did. She straightens up. She doesn't look at him. She looks at the wall. "I told you," she whispers, and there is no anger in her words, only a terrible, heartbreaking resignation. "I told you. It's just more pain. Why do you want this? Why do you keep digging it all up? It's not real. This," she gestures to the screen, "this is just poison. I can't do this anymore, Julian. Please, just come to bed, be normal. Please." She leaves. She doesn't close the door this time. She leaves it open, a final weary invitation to abandon this fantasy and come back to the normal world, the world of shared, quiet misery, the world of the garnishment, the world of the restaurant. He is now completely, totally, and perfectly defeated. The one stranger he reached out to has confirmed he is a fraud. The one person he loves has confirmed he is a fool, addicted to a fantasy that brings nothing but pain. The asset is garbage, the purpose is poison. Mrs. Finch's logic was a beautiful, sterile academic theory. This is the real world, and in the real world, he has just sacrificed his last shred of dignity and pushed his companion to the breaking point, only to discover that his passion doesn't want him back. This isn't a new beginning. It's the end. He is an automaton. The next day, he puts on the uniform. He goes to work. His body moves. His hands are steady. His voice is polite. But he is not there. He is a shell, piloting a meat suit, his mind a million miles away, still sitting on the floor of that closet, staring at the instructor's brutal comment. The humiliation is a physical taste, a coating of ash on his tongue. He is so profoundly, deeply tired. The fight has been knocked out of him. The asset is garbage. The purpose is poison. He was a fool to listen to a banker's cold logic. He is a waiter. That is his reality. He enters the restaurant not with his usual simmering resentment, but with a new, hollow acceptance. This is his place. This is his tomb. He is polishing wine glasses at the service bar when the restaurant manager, a man named Henderson, taps him on the shoulder. "Julian, my office." The tone is not angry. It's professional. Julian's first thought is that he's being fired, that the garnishment paperwork has finally come through, and he is now too much of a liability. It is the perfect, logical end to his disastrous week. He follows Henderson into the small, carpeted office. It smells of photocopier toner and old coffee. Henderson gestures to the chair. "Close the door." Julian sits. He is bracing for the end. Instead, Henderson smiles, a genuine, tired, managerial smile. "Julian, you've been with us a long time. You're my most reliable man. You're wasted on the floor. Your efficiency is, well, it's frankly wasted on the guests." Henderson leans forward, steepling his hands on the desk. "The point is, our assistant manager is leaving, moving to another state. The job is yours if you want it. Full salary, full benefits, health, dental, 40 hours, predictable, no more tips, no more doubles, real stability." Henderson says the word stability as if it is a sacred object, a golden idol. "It's a lot more responsibility, but you're a serious person. You're the only one here I trust not to screw it up. What do you say?" Julian just stares. He is holding two things in his mind. The image of the forum post. Get this garbage off the forum. And this offer. This escape. This is a parachute. This is a pre-built, pre-approved, stable life being handed to him on a platter. It is the identity his father has always wanted for him. It is the normal that Sarah just last night was crying for. We are witnessing the most dangerous temptation of all. It is not the temptation of vice, but the temptation of security. This is what the philosopher Erich Fromm called the escape from freedom. We believe we crave freedom, but we are, in fact, terrified of it. We are terrified of the void, of the silence, of the crushing individual responsibility of creating our own meaning from scratch. Julian just stared into the void of his passion, and the void spat back at him, calling him garbage. And now, in his moment of total failure, the system is offering him a way out. It is offering him an escape, not from the restaurant, but from himself. He doesn't have to be the failed pilot anymore. He doesn't have to be the humiliated sys-op failure. He can be Julian Morales, assistant manager. It is a prefabricated, respectable identity. It is a warm, safe, comfortable cage, and the door is wide open. He doesn't remember the drive home. He is in the apartment, standing in the living room, which is still dim in the late afternoon light. Sarah is there on the couch where he left her. The air between them is thick with the unspoken. I spoke with Henderson today," he says, his voice sounding strange, distant. "The assistant manager quit. He offered me the job. Full salary." Sarah's head snaps up. Her eyes, which were dead and red-rimmed, are suddenly wide. A new light flickers in them. It is not joy, it is a desperate, starving hope. "Julian?" she whispers. Are you serious?" "Yeah," he says, numb. "Benefits. Health insurance. It's stable." She stands up. She crosses the room, and for the first time in what feels like years, she touches him. She grips his arms. "Oh my God," she breathes. "Julian, take it." It is not a suggestion. It is a plea. It is the plea of a drowning woman who has just been thrown a rope. "Please, this is it. This is the answer. This is our chance. We can be okay. We can be normal. No more other stuff. No more hiding in the closet. No more that. Just this. A real job. Our life. Please, Julian. Please tell me you'll take it." This is the climactic moment from Dostoevsky's parable of the Grand Inquisitor. For an entire week, Julian has been following the path of agonizing spiritual freedom. He has been carrying the burden of his own purpose, and it has led to nothing but humiliation and pain. Now the world, in the form of his manager and his companion, is offering him what the Inquisitor offered: bread. They are offering him the miracle of certainty, the authority of a boss, and the safety of a secure, predictable life. They are begging him to hand over his terrible, agonizing freedom, which has only made him and everyone around him miserable. They are begging him to let them take the burden of his meaning off his shoulders. All he has to do is say yes. All he has to do is accept the bread. All he has to do is agree to be normal. He looks at Sarah's face, her eyes shining with desperate tears of relief. He sees the path, a life of guaranteed, stable, comfortable, and soul-crushing misery. It is the prison he knows, and its door is wide open, inviting him in. Will he accept the safety of this tomb, or will he choose the painful, terrifying, humiliating freedom of the void? He is standing in the middle of his living room, a ghost in his own life. The silence in the apartment is a physical thing, a thick, pressurized gel. Sarah's desperate, hopeful plea, "Take the job, please, be normal," is echoing in the air, a constant, looping soundtrack. It is the sound of a rope being thrown to a drowning man, a heavy, safe, secure rope that leads back to a ship he knows is sinking. He looks at his hands, half expecting to see the restaurant polish still on them. This is the path, the stable life, the managerial role, the escape. It is the correct choice. It is the choice that makes everyone else happy. It is the choice that ends the pain, that silences the forum trolls, that pays the garnishment. It is a warm, comfortable, pre-dug grave, and he can't breathe. The thought of saying yes to that job, of becoming assistant manager Julian, is a physical suffocation. It is an acceptance of the verdict. It is an agreement with the senior flight instructor that his guide was, in fact, garbage. It is the final, formal surrender. But what is the alternative? The alternative is to trust the asset that the market has just publicly, brutally rejected. He is trapped between a choice that feels like death and a choice that has been proven to be a failure. He is paralyzed. He is caught between Sarah's reality and Mrs. Finch's logic. He cannot move. He realizes, with a jolt of clarity, that there is only one person left who can break this tie. There is only one person who speaks the new, cold, clean language. He needs the arbiter. He needs the translator. He needs to go back to the bank. This is the gravitational pull of the mentor. When we are lost in the dark wood, when the path is completely obscured, we do not, as we are told, trust ourselves. We run, panicked, back to the teacher. We run to the one who gave us the map, and we beg them, "Walk it for me, tell me which way to turn. Take this terrible freedom, this burden of choice, off my shoulders. Just give me the answer." This is the great human sickness of imitation, the fear of our own sovereignty. As Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote, we are in a conspiracy against our own manhood. We want to be followers. Julian is not going to the bank to get a loan. He is going on a pilgrimage, seeking an indulgence, seeking permission from a higher authority to be himself. He is going to ask her one simple question. The market rejected the asset. Does that mean the asset is worthless? He arrives at the bank. The marble floor is cold and polished, a perfect grid of certainty. He feels the same shame, the same imposter syndrome. A waiter, in his off hours, coming to talk philosophy with a banker. He walks to the receptionist's desk, his heart a dry, fast drum. "I need to see Mrs. Finch, it's Julian Morales." The receptionist, a new woman he doesn't recognize, types his name. Her expression is professionally blank. She types again. She looks up, her eyes neutral, holding no information. "I'm sorry, sir, who are you here to see?" "Finch," Julian says, his voice rising, a small thread of panic. "Mrs. Finch, Finch. I was just here. I have a file with her." The receptionist types again. She reads the screen. "Ah, I see," she says, her voice as sterile as the polished marble. "Mrs. Finch is no longer with this branch. She received a significant promotion. She's been transferred to the corporate headquarters in Chicago. She flew out last night." The words are just sounds. They are sterile administrative facts. To Julian, they are a gunshot. Chicago. Last night. Gone. The floor tilts. The humming of the bank's air conditioning becomes a deafening roar. The architect of the new logic, the translator, the high priestess, the oracle, has vanished. She is gone. She has left him alone in the temple, holding the manager's offer in one hand and the forum's insult in the other, and she has not told him which one is real. He just stands there. He mumbles a thank you and turns, walking out of the bank. He is an object in motion, but his mind has stopped. He is hit with a profound, dizzying sense of abandonment. It is a cold, sharp, childish terror. The one person who saw him as an asset rather than a failure is gone. The one person who treated him as a problem to be solved, not a tragedy to be pitied, has left the building. He is alone with the choice. The intellectual and emotional crutch he has been leaning on for this entire frantic week has just been kicked out from under him. He is in free fall. And in the middle of that terror, a new, cold and terrible thought begins to form. What if this wasn't a coincidence? What if this was the final lesson? This is the most brutal and most necessary part of the journey. The mentor must disappear. This is the violent, profound and misunderstood wisdom of the Zen, saying, if you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him. It is a metaphor, but it is a deadly serious one. As long as the Buddha, the external teacher, the mentor exists, the student will always be an imitation. The student will always look outward for validation, for the answer, for permission. The student's enlightenment will always be second-hand. The teacher's final, greatest and most loving gift to the student is, always, their absence. Mrs. Finch gave him the tools. She gave him the language, but she could not give him the answer. Her disappearance is the final, terrifying exam. She has kicked him out of the nest. This is the spiritual journey that Nietzsche mapped. The spirit must first be a camel, bearing the heavy burdens and values of others. Thou shalt be a stable waiter. Thou shalt feel shame. Then the spirit must become a lion, fighting the dragon of old values, saying, I will post this guide. But the lion, for all its power, can only destroy and defy. It cannot create new values. To do that, the spirit must become the child. The child is a new beginning, a clean slate, an innocent and sacred yes to life, a creator of its own world. Julian has been stuck in the lion phase, fighting, but still defined by what he was fighting against. Mrs. Finch's logic was just a new dragon. Her vanishing is the act that forces the final terrifying transformation. He must stop being a camel, he must stop being a lion. He must, for the first time in his life, become the child. He is standing on the sidewalk, the city rushing past him in a blur. He is no longer panicked. He is no longer energized. He is just empty. He is unanchored. He has no teacher. He has no map. He has no external authority to tell him he is right. He has been stripped of his mentor. He has been stripped of his family's respect. He has been stripped of his companion's support. He has been stripped of his dignity by the forum. He has nothing. He is at point zero. He has only the manager's offer, the warm, safe tomb, and the cold, silent void of his own terrifying and now totally unavoidable freedom. The crutch is gone. He must now find out, after a lifetime of leaning, if he has the strength to stand on his own. He walks home from the bank. The city noise is a distant, meaningless hum. He is an astronaut who has just had his tether to the ship severed. He is floating. The mentor is gone. The logic, the new, clean, cold language he was just beginning to learn, has been packed up and shipped to Chicago. He is alone again with his native tongue, the language of shame, failure, and confusion. He opens the door to his apartment. It is late afternoon, but the curtains are drawn. The room is dark, filled with the grey, stagnant light of a life on pause. And she is there. Sarah is on the couch, a silhouette. She is exactly as she was the night before, a shape in the shadows. She is not reading. She is not watching television. She is scrolling. Her face is illuminated by the sharp, sterile blue light of her phone. Her thumb moves with a hypnotic, repetitive rhythm. Flick. Pause. Flick. He stands in the hallway, his jacket still on. He is a ghost in his own home. He could scream, he could cry, he could set the garnishment letter on fire in the middle of the floor. She would not look up. She is physically present, 3 feet away, but she has retreated to a place he cannot reach. She is not his companion. She is not his partner. She is a digital phantom, a breathing statue animated only by the glow of the screen, completely, utterly, and profoundly oblivious to the fact that his world has just for the final time collapsed. This is the true meaning of solitude. It is not being alone. It is being in a room with the one person who is supposed to see you and realizing you are invisible. He is more alone in this moment than he was on the sidewalk outside the bank. The silence in the room is absolute, broken only by the tiny, dry tap of her fingernail on the glass screen. We are witnessing the moment of total existential isolation. This is the philosophical state that Jean-Paul Sartre called our true condition. We are, at our core, condemned to be free. We are born into a universe that offers us no inherent meaning, no pre-written script, no absolute authority. To escape the terror of this freedom, we build complex systems of validation. We lean on our families, our partners, our careers, and our mentors, begging them to give us a map, to tell us we are good, to tell us we are on the right path. Julian's entire life was built on these external crutches. His identity was a patchwork of his father's approval, his companion's need for safety, the market's validation, and most recently his mentor's logic. And now, in the span of a few days, every single crutch has been systematically, brutally, and completely kicked away. This is the necessary, terrifying purgatory that mystics like St. John of the Cross called the dark night of the soul. It is not a poetic sadness, it is a structural process. It is the point in the journey where the universe, in an act of profound and violent grace, strips you of everything you thought you were, in order to force you to confront what you actually are. All external authorities are gone. The teacher has vanished. The companion has become a ghost. The family's pride is a cage. The market has called his offering garbage. The stable job is a tomb. He has been stripped of every role, every mask, every identity. He is not a pilot. He is not a waiter. He is not a good son or a supportive partner. He is not even a failed student. He is nothing. He is at point zero. He is no longer a hero on a journey. He is not a victim. He is simply a man in a dark room, with a choice. There is no one left to ask. There is no one left to blame. There is no one coming to save him. He has been fully and finally abandoned to his own sovereignty. He is alone, as we all are, with the terrible, agonizing, and glorious burden of his own freedom. He can no longer ask, "What does Mrs. Finch think?" or "What does Sarah need?" or "What does the forum say?" The universe has silenced all other voices, and now there is only one question left, hanging in the dead, silent air of the apartment. It is the only question that has ever mattered. What do you, Julian Morales, choose to do? He is standing in the dark. The apartment is a tomb. The blue light from Sarah's phone is the only illumination. A cold, digital fog that doesn't light the room. Only her face. He sees the offer from his manager on the table, a set of keys to a comfortable, well-lit, predictable prison. He sees the open door of the closet, the void, the symbol of his humiliation, the engine of his pain. He is caught between the tomb and the void, between a living death and a dead passion, and he is so tired. The energy that has fueled his manic, terrified journey for the past week, the anger, the hope, the confusion, the desperation, is gone. It has all drained out of him, leaving a profound, hollow, physical emptiness. He has no fight left, he has no questions left, he has no path. He doesn't choose the keys, he doesn't choose the closet, he doesn't choose Sarah. He stops. He simply ceases to participate. His body, no longer able to sustain the tension, gives out. He doesn't fall. He just folds. He slides down the wall, his back scraping against the plaster, and sits hard on the floor. He is back where he was when the garnishment letter came. But this is different. That was a shock. This is a conclusion. He looks at the digital phantom on the couch, at the keys on the table, at the darkness in the closet, and he utters the only truth he has left. "Okay," he whispers, to no one. "I'm done. You win. He doesn't even know who you is anymore. The world, the system, his past, his own broken mind. It doesn't matter. The war is over. He has lost. This moment right here looks like the absolute final and pathetic end. It looks like the ultimate defeat, the surrender of the broken animal. But in the world of philosophy, in the language of the spirit, what we are witnessing is not an end. It is the most crucial and most terrifying first step. This is the act of Wu Wei, the Taoist principle of non-action, but Wu Wei does not mean doing nothing. It means non-forced action. It is the cessation of struggle, the end of swimming against the current. For 5 years, Julian has been forcing his life, forcing his smile as a waiter, forcing his relationship with Sarah, forcing his new identity as an analyst. He has been a clenched, white-knuckled fist, fighting the river of what is. And now he is finally totally unclenched. He has let go. He has, for the first time, stopped trying. In his mind there is silence. The sharp, cold voice of his internal critic is quiet. Why? Because it has won. The fight is over. The new, fragile voice of his purpose is also silent. Why? Because it has lost. All the competing, screaming voices have cancelled each other out, and what is left is the void, the absolute, perfect, terrifying and pure silence of point zero. He has finally, after a lifetime of running, hit the very bottom. He is not a pilot. He is not a waiter. He is not a success. He is not a failure. He is just a man, sitting on a floor, in the dark, breathing. He has become nothing. And in doing so, he has for the first time become everything. He is an empty vessel. This is the state that Friedrich Nietzsche called amor fati, the love of one's fate. It is not just accepting what has happened, it is willing it. It is looking at the entire catastrophic, ugly, painful chain of events. The failed check ride, the debt, the garnishment, the forum's ridicule, the mentor's disappearance, the companion's abandonment, and saying yes. Not yes, I will endure this, but yes, I needed this. He has stopped fighting the fact of his life. He is no longer at war with his own history. He has surrendered to what is. The failure is no longer a ghost or an asset. It just is. The manager's offer just is. Sarah's silence just is. He has stopped judging. He has stopped resisting. He has finally truly surrendered. This surrender is not a weakness. It is the most profound act of strength. As long as he was fighting, he was defined by the thing he was fighting against. His purpose was just a reaction to his failure. He was still chained to the past, just pulling on the chain from a different direction. By letting go, by collapsing on the floor, and accepting the total, abject loss, he has done something incredible. He has, at long last, severed the chain. The past no longer has an opponent. The ghost has no one to haunt. He has taken away all its power by simply agreeing with it. Okay, I am a failure. And in the moment he truly accepts the label ceases to have any meaning. The energy he was spending to keep the failure at bay, to keep the ghost locked up, to perform the role of the waiter, it's all just been released. It's a tidal wave of psychic energy with nowhere to go. He is sitting on the floor, in the dark, in the silence. He is an empty room. He is a blank page. The war is over. The old world has burned to the ground. The old Julian, the fighter, the victim, the waiter, the pretender. He has just died. He is at the absolute bottom. Is this then the end? Is this the moment the screen fades to black? Or is this void, this profound, total, and terrifying emptiness, the one and only place from which a truly new thing can, for the first time, be born? He is on the floor. The world is a shade of grey, a dull ambient hum. He is not sad. He is not angry. He is not anything. He is a machine that has been powered down. The internal war is over, and all sides have lost. The silence in his mind is vast, a cold, empty, interstellar space. There are no voices, no critic, no advocate, no judge, no ghost. There is only the rhythmic, simple, animal fact of his own breathing. In, out. He is just an object, a thing in a room. And in this profound, absolute and total vacuum, an image surfaces. It doesn't rise with emotion. It appears, downloaded. A single, cold, crystalline fact. It is a memory of her. Mrs. Finch. He sees her, not her face, but her hands. Her hands on a keyboard, her monitor displaying a chaotic blood-red spreadsheet, a failed business, a taco truck. He remembers the scene, but he is not in it. He is observing it from this new cold distance. He remembers the feeling in the room. The taco truck owner was panicked, emotional, a mess, just like him. And Mrs. Finch. She was not looking at the man. She was looking at the spreadsheet. She was not offering therapy. She was not validating his pain. Her fingers were moving with a precise, impersonal rhythm, reorganizing. She was ignoring the ghost entirely. She was fixing the system. She was reclassifying, deleting, moving data. She was not trying to heal the man's past. She was trying to build a better protocol for the future. She was extracting the data from the failure, not for the man who failed, but for the bank, for the next person, for the system. And then a second, colder fact clicks into place beside the first, the echo of her voice from their last meeting. The data is not for you. It is for the market. Stop trying to cure yourself. Stop trying to fix yourself. Start trying to serve someone else. The two facts, her action at the screen and her lesson, lock together, and in the silent, empty void of his mind, they create a spark, a tiny, cold, logical spark. He sees, with a clarity that is almost violent, the entire error of his journey. He sees his own catastrophic and fundamental miscalculation. He thinks of the forum post, "Sysop failure." He thinks of the instructor's comment, "Garbage." He had stared at that comment, and it had destroyed him. Why? Because he was still playing the wrong game. He had posted that guide, his asset, not as an act of service, but as a desperate act of validation. His internal monologue is no longer a voice. It is a line of code, executing. I posted it to prove I wasn't garbage. I posted it so someone, anyone, would look at my failure and tell me I wasn't a failure. I was still focused on me. I was still trying to use the data to heal myself. I was asking the world, am I worthless? And the world, in the form of that instructor, gave me an honest answer. Yes. As long as I'm asking that question, I am. The entire effort was selfish. It was still about his pain, his shame, his story. He wasn't serving. He was begging. This right here is the great pivot. This is the truth that men like Viktor Frankl discovered in the depths of unimaginable suffering. We are not built to find meaning by looking inward. We are not built for self-actualization. We are built for self-transcendence. Meaning is not a thing we find like a lost wallet. It is a thing we create. And it is almost always, without exception, created in the act of forgetting ourselves, of turning our focus away from our own small, personal dramas and dedicating our energy to something or someone outside of ourselves. Julian has been trapped in a hall of mirrors, endlessly analyzing his own reflection, his own pain, his own trauma. The epiphany is not that he can fix the reflection. The epiphany is that the only way out is to stop looking at it entirely. He was right. The failure is his, the pain is his. But the data, the lesson, that was never meant for him. It was meant for them. It was meant for the hive, for the common good, as Marcus Aurelius would have said. A bee does not exist for itself. It exists for the hive. Julian's purpose was not to use his $50,000 education to heal himself. It was to use it to feed the hive, the thousands of other student pilots, all sweating, all terrified of that same check ride, all looking for a map. His pain was the raw material for their medicine. His failure was the price of their potential success. And in that light, the forum troll, the senior flight instructor, what is he? He is nothing. He is one bee in a hive of thousands who is angry about the taste of the honey, but his opinion does not, in any way, change the nutritional value of the data. The game has just changed. He was playing for validation. The real game was service. He was playing for, am I good enough? The real game was, is this useful? And the answer to that, he doesn't know. But he suddenly, desperately needs to. The energy is back. It is not the manic, panicked fear of the last week. It is a cold, clean, quiet hum. It is the sound of an engine that has just been for the first time correctly aligned. The mentor is gone. The companion is a ghost. The market has rejected him. He is a failure. He is sitting on a dirty floor in a dark room, and for the first time in his entire life, he knows exactly what he has to do. He gets up from the floor. The movement is slow, stiff, his joints aching from the hours spent in surrender. But he is not the same man who collapsed. The hollowness is still there, but it is not the vacuum of defeat. It is the clean, cold emptiness of a factory floor that has just been swept, ready for a new production line. He walks past the table, ignoring the manager's keys. He walks past the couch, where Sarah is now asleep, her face still illuminated by the phone's glow, which has timed out, leaving her in the same darkness as the rest of the room. He walks to the closet. He sits. He powers on the monitor. He opens the web browser. He looks at the forum. He sees the instructor's comment. "Get this garbage off the forum." He reads it. This time the words are just words. They are data. They do not cause a feeling. They are the objective, documented reaction of one user. His internal monologue is no longer a voice. It is a diagnostic. Observation: the initial test failed. The asset was presented incorrectly. It was packaged as a personal, emotional story. The target audience, technical experts, rejected the packaging. Conclusion: the packaging must be reformulated. The presentation must shift from subjective story to objective service. He is no longer Julian, the failed pilot. He is Mrs. Finch, the analyst. He highlights the URL of the forum post. He hits delete. He watches the page vanish. He closes the browser. He opens a new blank document. He is not fixing the old guide. He is liquidating it. He is scrapping it for parts. He types a new title, his fingers moving with a slow, deliberate precision. The old title was Why I Failed. The new title is The Check Ride Panic Protocol, a systems-based guide to managing cognitive load. We are watching the human mind perform the one act that makes it distinct from all others. We are watching it transcend its own programming. This is the essence of the Stoic dichotomy of control. For his entire life, Julian has been obsessed with the things he cannot and will never control. What his father thinks, what Sarah fears, what the market says about his worth. He has staked his entire identity on these external, uncontrollable outcomes. And so, he has been a slave. In this dark closet, he is, for the first time, performing the pivot. He is relinquishing totally any concern for the outcome. He is letting go of the forum's validation. He is letting go of the manager's job offer. He is letting go of Sarah's approval. His focus is now 100% ruthlessly on the one and only thing in the universe he can control, the process. His focus becomes absolute. He is not writing, he is building. He is no longer a man writing about his feelings of failure. He is a systems engineer designing a tool. He pours every hour of his useless passion, every minute spent in this closet, mastering the A380, into the document. He writes about task saturation, the technical term for when a pilot's brain has too many inputs. He creates cognitive checklists, mental firewalls to stop a single error from cascading into total panic. He uses his failure not as a story, but as a case study. He writes, at 1,000 feet, the simulated engine failure, input 1, combined with the unexpected wind shear, input 2, and the instructor's prompt, input 3, caused a saturated state. The error was not the panic. The error was the lack of a protocol to manage the saturation. He is no longer the victim. He is the diagnostician. This is the great, powerful secret of Zen. The masters teach that enlightenment is not found in the aha moment. It is found in the process. It is found in the act of sweeping the floor or washing the bowl, or in this case, of typing a technical manual. When the focus on the self, the I who is succeeding or failing, disappears, and only the task remains, that is when true mastery occurs. Julian's self has been burned away. His ego, his shame, his pride, it's all gone. And in its place, there is only the work. The work is clean. The work is honest. The work is useful. He is not thinking about whether this will make him money. He is not thinking about whether this will save his relationship. He is not thinking about whether this will make him feel better. He is obsessed with a single, driving, impersonal question. Is this tool good? Is it technically sound? Will it work for someone else? He types for 6 hours. The sun comes up, he doesn't notice. The document is finished. It is 12 pages long. It is dense. It is technical. It is impersonal. It is the single most valuable, most honest, and most powerful thing he has ever created. He looks at it. He feels nothing. He feels no pride. He feels no fear. He feels only a quiet, calm, and profound sense of correctness. The equation has been solved. The machine has been built. The job is done. He has taken his $50,000 education, his 5 years of shame, and his secret passion, and he has reclassified them. They are no longer a ghost or an asset. They are a tool. It's a noble idea. It's a perfect, cold, logical piece of machinery. But now, will he have the courage to plug it in? Will he have the strength to act, especially after his last, total, and public humiliation? It is done. The document, 12 pages of dense, impersonal, and technical prose, glows on the monitor. The check ride panic protocol. It is the single most honest thing he has ever produced. It is his $50,000 education, his 5 years of shame, and his secret obsession, all smelted down into a single functional tool. And now, the final step. The action. His hand moves to the mouse, but he freezes. That old, familiar voice is back. It is not the triumphant, mocking judge from the night of the forum post. It is a new, far more insidious voice. It is the voice of calm, sensible, rational protection. It is the advocate of caution. "All right," it whispers, its tone reasonable, almost kind. "You've done it. You wrote the guide. You proved your point. You faced the trauma, and you turned it into a protocol. That is the victory. Be proud of that. Now, save the file. Put it on a hard drive. The act of writing it was the therapy, but publishing it, again. That isn't purpose, Julian. That's self-harm. That is pure masochism. You already did this. You were called garbage. Why would you rationally invite that pain back into your life? You will hurt yourself. You will hurt Sarah. You have an offer for a real, stable job. Don't throw it all away for this. Be smart. The work is done. Let it be." He listens. The voice makes a compelling case. It is logical. It is sensible. It is the voice of self-preservation, the voice that has kept him safe in his miserable job for 5 years. It is the voice of the village, begging him not to go back into the dark forest. It is the voice of every person who has ever chosen the warm, predictable prison over the cold, terrifying void. He looks at the title on the screen. He looks at the lines of code-like text. And he thinks, the data was never meant for him. It was meant for them. He sees with a sudden sharp clarity the face of a stranger. A young student, 20 years old, sitting in a rented Cessna, his hands sweating, his mind starting to fog over as the instructor barks an order. He sees that kid's face, and he knows with a certainty that is beyond logic that the voice in his head, the advocate of safety, is wrong. It is still just a function of the self. It is still just him trying to protect himself. This is the great subtle shift that thinkers like Krishnamurti pointed to. There is a profound difference between action that is a reaction and action that simply is. His first post on the forum was a reaction. It was a selfish, desperate plea for validation. He was acting from the self, from the I who needed to be told he wasn't a failure. And so, the world, which is a mirror, reflected his own internal chaos back at him. This is different. This is not a reaction. This is not for him. This is action without the I. It is an act of pure service. It is a tool. He is not a man looking for a pat on the back. He is an engineer, placing a tool in a public toolbox for anyone who might need it. His self, his ego, his fear of being called garbage, it is irrelevant to the function of the tool. This right here is the true definition of courage. It is not, as we are often told, the absence of fear. As Aristotle defined it, Courage is the mean between two vices. On one end, there is cowardice, the state of being so paralyzed by fear that you cannot act. That has been Julian's entire life for 5 years. On the other end, there is recklessness, the state of having no fear at all. That is the fool, the person who doesn't understand the danger. Courage, the virtue, is the center path. It is the ability to feel the fear completely, to hear the advocate of caution, to acknowledge the very real, very painful memory of the forum's rejection, and to act anyway. Not in spite of the fear, but in alignment with a purpose that is more important than the fear. His hand is on the mouse. The voice is still whispering, "Don't do it. Take the manager's job. Be safe." The fear is real. His stomach is a cold knot. His heart is a fast, dry drum. He is terrified. But the image of that anonymous student is, for the first time, more real, more important than his own terror. He is not a hero. He is not a genius. He is just a man who has a map that might help someone else out of the same dark wood he was lost in. That is the entire, simple, and profound equation. He is no longer fighting his past. He is not fighting the voice. He is simply accepting them. He is accepting the fear, accepting the shame, accepting the past failure, and he is acting anyway. He doesn't go back to the same forum. That would be an act of ego, an attempt to win a fight, to prove the instructor wrong. That is still the self. He does his research. He finds a different site, a technical repository for aviation resources, a library, not a gladiator pit, a place where files are hosted, where the focus is on utility, not on opinion. He makes an account. Panic Protocol Systems. He doesn't write a long emotional post. He doesn't share his story. He simply uploads the 12-page document. He writes a one-sentence description. A technical systems-based guide for pilots to manage cognitive load and task saturation during high-stress check ride scenarios. He attaches the file. He sees the upload button. He does not hesitate. He does not brace. He just clicks. The progress bar fills. Upload complete. It is done. The asset has been liquidated. The tool is in the toolbox. He feels no pride. He feels no euphoria. He feels only the profound, hollow, and perfect silence of a machine that has completed its primary function. The task is done. The equation is solved. He closes the laptop. He will not check the download count. He will not look for comments, because the desire for validation is the very poison he is trying to drain. The process, the work itself, was his responsibility. The outcome, the reaction of the world, was never his to control. He has, at long last, truly understood the difference. He stands up in the dark, silent closet. He is deliberately not checking. This is the new rule. This is the new discipline. He has placed the tool in the toolbox, and now he must walk away. He must be indifferent to the outcome. He is at the restaurant in his uniform, moving through the Saturday night dinner rush. He is a ghost, but a different kind of ghost. He is no longer the haunted victim. He is the quiet observer, a man who has completed his task and is now simply waiting. He is waiting for his shift to end. He is waiting for the manager to ask him for a final answer on the promotion. He is waiting for his life to settle into the shape that it is meant to be. He has done his work. The rest is not his. He is on his break, standing in the back alley, the air thick with the smell of wet cardboard and hot grease from the kitchen vents. He has his phone in his hand, a lifeline to the world, but he refuses to open the browser. He will not check the repository. He will not look for comments. He will not seek validation. His phone vibrates, a notification. He almost drops it, his heart giving a single hard jolt. But it's not a forum notification. It is a direct email. He doesn't recognize the sender's name, but the subject line hits him like a physical blow. It just says, "Panic Protocol." His thumb shakes as he taps the screen. This is not a public comment. This is contact. He opens it. He reads. The words are precise, professional, and utterly disorienting. "I am the instructor who replied to your first post on the AV forum, the one you deleted." Julian's stomach clenches. He is bracing for a second wave of insults, but the email continues. "A colleague sent me your panic protocol from the technical library. I need to be very clear, I was wrong. What you posted before was, as I saw it, an emotional story. This is a tool. This is the single best breakdown of cognitive load management and task saturation I have ever read. I've been teaching for 20 years and I failed a student last month. He's a good kid, a good pilot, but he chokes under pressure, just like you described. I didn't know how to teach him out of it. This guide, this is the protocol I was missing. I am using it as part of my official curriculum now. Thank you. He reads the email 3 times. He has to lean against the brick wall, the rough, damp surface pressing into his shoulder blades. This is the moment. This is the great and powerful magic of what Friedrich Nietzsche called the transmutation of all values. This is the philosophical alchemy that turns lead into gold, poison into medicine. For 5 years, Julian's failure was his poison. It was the source of his shame, his paralysis, his self-contempt. And now, by offering it as service, he has transformed it. It is literally curriculum. It is medicine for someone else. But the alchemy is even more profound than that. The other poison in his life, the brutal, humiliating insult from that instructor, the source of his darkest moment, the garbage comment, that too has been transformed. The man who was the voice of his deepest, most profound failure has just become the voice of his first, most profound success. The enemy has become the validation. Another email, a different sender, a simple address. Sir, I'm a student pilot in Texas. I just read your protocol. I've been lying to my instructor for months, pretending I'm sick, because I'm so terrified of the check ride. I think I'm just a coward. But your guide, you're not talking about courage. You're talking about systems. This is me. This is my panic. You wrote down my brain. Julian's eyes scanned to the end of the email. I know this is a long shot, but do you teach this? Do you do any one-on-one coaching? I have a home simulator rig, a good one. I would pay for your time. Anything. This is the second, quieter and more powerful validation. This is the proof of the law that Viktor Frankl observed. For his entire life, Julian has been chasing the consequences of purpose. He has been chasing happiness, or stability, or respect, or peace. And in his chase, he found none of them. For the last 2 days, in a desperate final act, he stopped. He abandoned the chase for happiness entirely. He focused with a cold, almost monastic obsession on one thing and one thing only: meaning, on service, on creating a tool that was useful to an abstract, unknown other. And now, as a simple, logical, and inevitable consequence, the very success he had stopped chasing, a paying client, a path to a new life, a way out of the restaurant, has just ensued. It has arrived, quietly, in his inbox, not because he willed it, but because he forgot to. He is standing in a dark alley, the phone in his hand, the smell of garbage in the air. He is looking at the 2 emails. He is not happy. He is not proud. He is not cured. He is just still. He is an instrument that has just received 2 clear, undeniable signals from the world. He waits. He listens. He probes, internally, for the old, familiar voice. The cold, sharp, rational judge that has narrated his entire life. The one that whispers, "You are a fraud. You are garbage. You are a waiter in a closet." He listens for the sneer, for the doubt, for the "it's a trick" or "don't believe them." And there is nothing. It is the first time in his adult life that he is, in his own head, completely, totally, and profoundly alone. The critic is silent. It has not been defeated. It has not been argued with. It has, in the face of this new, irrefutable data, simply been dissolved. He stands in the alley, the phone heavy in his hand, a piece of dark glass containing 2 impossible futures. The vibration of the second email, the one from the student in Texas, the one with the word pay in it, is still a phantom buzz in his palm. He is no longer an analyst, no longer a victim. He is just a man, holding 2 small sparks of light, while the restaurant, the world of his known, stable failure, hums behind him. He pushes the alley door open. The heat and noise of the Saturday night service hit him, a familiar, unwelcome blanket. He walks back onto the floor, a ghost returning to his haunting grounds, and the first person he sees is Henderson, the manager. Henderson spots him, his face a mask of professional urgency, and he waves him over, his gesture sharp, cutting through the crowd. "Julian, there you are. Listen, I don't mean to rush you on your break, but I've got HR breathing down my neck. I need an answer. The promotion. Are you in? Are you my new assistant manager?" The question lands in the center of the room, and for Julian, everything else goes silent. The clatter of plates, the murmur of conversation. It all fades to a distant, underwater roar. It is here. The final crossroads. The two worlds, which had been circling each other, have just collided. In his pocket, the phone is a physical weight, a small square stone of meaning. In front of him, Henderson's expectant, smiling face is a gateway, a wide, open and welcoming door to security. He can feel the physical pull of that offer. He can taste the relief that would come from saying yes. It would be an end to the garnishment, an end to the fear, an end to the striving, the humiliation, the closet, the forum. It would be the end of sysop failure. He would be Mr. Morales, assistant manager. He would be normal. He could go home to Sarah, give her the news, and watch her face, broken by fear, finally reassemble itself into peace. He could give her that. It would be a gift. This is the choice that the philosopher Søren Kierkegaard defined as the very essence of human existence. This is the either-or. We believe our lives are made of many small choices, but Kierkegaard argued that in the end, we are only given one. The choice of how we will create ourselves. This moment for Julian is not a career decision. It is an act of spiritual birth. Henderson's offer is the aesthetic life. It is the life of surfaces, of comfort, of security, of being defined by others, by a job title, by a salary, by a manager's approval. It is a life, Kierkegaard warned, that is defined by the external, and its inevitable, secret conclusion is despair. The phone in his pocket, the email from a stranger in Texas. That is the ethical or religious life. It is the terrifying, unmapped and unproven path of purpose. It is the identity he must build for himself, from his own failure, with no guarantee of success, no external validation, no boss to tell him he is stable. He looks at Henderson's face. It is a kind face. It is the face of the stable job, the face of the pension, the face of the sensible decision. It is the face of the warm, comfortable, and perfectly sealed tomb. The manager is, in this moment, the high priest of the prison his family and Sarah have been begging him to enter. This is the ultimate test. The phone in his pocket is just a promise. It is a digital ghost. It is a maybe. The man in front of him is real. The salary is real. The health insurance is real. He is being asked to choose between an abstract, terrifying meaning and a concrete, immediate security. He is being asked to bet his entire life and the stability of his companion on 2 emails against the certainty of a career. This is the great universal threshold that Joseph Campbell spent his life mapping. This is the moment the hero, having completed his first test, is called to leave the village for good. Henderson's offer is the village. It is the known world, the stable identity, the script that society has written for him. It is the world where his family is proud and his companion feels safe. It is a life of quiet, predictable repetition. The phone in his pocket, that is the call from the dark forest. It is the path of the individual. It is the path with heart, the one for which there is no map, no guide, and no guarantee. It is the path of his own, unique, and terrifying legend. To choose the forest is to abandon the village, and the village will never forgive him for it. Henderson, seeing his hesitation, misreads it. He smiles, a confidential man-to-man gesture. "Come on, Julian, it's a no-brainer, right? It's the rest of your life. It's stability." The word hits Julian again. Stability. The word his father used. The word Sarah used. It is the key word for the prison. It is the brand name of the anesthetic. He feels the phone in his pocket, a silent, heavy weight of potential. He looks at Henderson, the kind, smiling face of his own damnation. He is at the final gate. Security or significance, the tomb or the void, the life that is given to him or the life that must be earned. This is the choice, in some small or large way, that every one of us must make, every single day. He looks at Henderson. The manager's face is a mask of expectant, friendly confidence. The answer is obvious. The answer is yes. It is the only sensible, rational, sane answer. The entire restaurant, the entire world, is built on the logic of this yes. Take the stability. Take the bread. Be normal. Julian feels the phone in his pocket. It is not a promise. It is a signal. A single, clear, cold transmission from a world he doesn't know, but one that has just, for the first time, recognized his true work. He is looking at two doors. One is wide, well lit, and guaranteed. The other is a dark, narrow crack in the wall, and he has no idea what is on the other side. He is terrified. The fear is a cold, liquid sensation in his stomach. But for the first time in his life, the fear is not the only thing. There is something else. A profound, unshakable, and utterly irrational calm. "Julian," Henderson prompts, his smile fading just a fraction, sensing the hesitation. "It's a no-brainer, right?" Julian takes a breath. The noise of the restaurant comes rushing back in, a wave of sound. But it doesn't touch him. He is in the eye of his own personal storm. He is in this moment perfectly still. He is not a waiter. He is not a manager. He is not a failure. He is just a man making a choice. He meets Henderson's eyes. His gaze is not defiant. It is not arrogant. It is simply finally clear. "Thank you, Mr. Henderson," he says, and his own voice sounds strange to him, calm, the tremble gone. It's a very generous offer. It's a great opportunity. But, Henderson says, already knowing. "But I have to decline," Julian finishes. I have to pursue something else. I'm sorry. I have to give you my notice." The words hang in the air. Henderson is stunned. His professional smile evaporates, replaced by a look of pure, baffled disbelief. "Decline? Julian, is this about money? We can talk numbers." Julian shakes his head, a small, polite, final gesture. "No, it's not about the money. It's a different path, a protocol I'm developing." He says the word protocol out loud in the real world, in the restaurant, and it feels as solid and real as the wine glasses in his hand. Henderson is now looking at him as if he has just confessed to joining a cult. "A protocol? Julian, what are you talking about? You're throwing away a career for a side project. This is stability. This is your life. This is the garnishment, Julian. This solves that." He is pleading now, not for his employee, but for the logic of the world. This is the peace that the Stoics called apatheia. It is not the coldness of apathy. It is the profound, unshakable tranquility that comes only when your internal world, your reason, your virtue, your purpose, is in perfect, non-negotiable alignment. The external world can rage. Henderson can be confused. Sarah can be terrified. The market can call him garbage. It is all smoke and noise. It is external and therefore not in his control. The only thing in his control is his choice, his action. And for the first time, his choice is aligned with his authentic self. The fear is still there, a cold hum in the background, but it no longer has the power to steer him. He has taken his hand off the wheel of external validation and placed it on the wheel of internal purpose. The result is this terrifying, absolute and beautiful calm. He has just done the impossible. He has refused the bread. He has refused the warm, comfortable, living death. He has chosen the void. He has chosen the terrifying, unproven and abstract path of his own singular purpose. This is the calm that Lao Tzu described in the Tao Te Ching. It is the peace of Wu Wei, of non-forced action. His entire life has been of forcing a smile, forcing a relationship, forcing an identity. This choice, this no, it is the first non-forced action of his life. It is not a struggle. It is a release. It is him, finally, after a lifetime of swimming against the current, letting go, and allowing the Tao, his true path, to simply carry him. He is walking, almost floating, through the chaos of the dinner service. He is still in his uniform, but he is no longer a waiter. He is a free man, inhabiting the costume of his old prison. He has just walked calmly out of the cell. He has never felt so poor. He has never felt so unstable. He has no job. He has no manager. He has no security. He has a garnishment notice in his pocket and a phone with 2 emails on it. And he has never, in his entire terrified life, felt this much peace. He has made the choice. He has chosen his own authentic, terrifying path. The choice is made, but now he has to go home. Now he has to face the person who begged him, with tears in her eyes, to choose the prison. He is still a waiter. The next day he puts on the uniform, the familiar starched white costume of his old identity. He goes to the restaurant. The lights are low, the tables are set, the noise is the same. He picks up a tray. He is, to the outside world, identical to the man he was 24 hours ago. But everything has changed. His body is here, moving with its practiced, ghost-like efficiency, but his mind is elsewhere. He is no longer a prisoner, endlessly walking the same 30-foot circle of his cell. He is now a financier, and this restaurant is his first, primary, and most important investment. This is not his life. This is his funding. The shame that used to cling to the uniform, the smell of steak and old wine, is gone. It has been replaced by a cold, clean, and quiet calculation. Every table he serves, every glass he refills, is a number. It is a set of digits. His internal monologue has been completely rewritten. The voice of the critic is gone, and in its place is the voice of the operator. Okay, table 4 is cashed out. That's an $18 tip. Table 7 is ordering another bottle of the Cabernet. That's another $12. This shift should yield approximately $150. That's $150 in fuel. He has, in his mind, already allocated the money. 70% goes directly to the garnishment, a mandatory tactical expense to keep the system from collapsing. The other 30% goes into his new operating budget. That's for web hosting, for a better microphone, for business cards. He is a man with 2 jobs. One is the labor, the other is the work. And he is, for the first time, using the meaninglessness of the first to fuel the profound meaning of the second. We are watching a fundamental philosophical shift in the nature of his reality. The philosopher Hannah Arendt made a critical distinction between labor and work. For 5 years, Julian was trapped in labor. It is the endless, repetitive, biological cycle of the animal. It is Sisyphus pushing the rock. You labor, serve tables, to get money, to buy food, to get energy, to go back to laboring. It is a closed loop that creates nothing, builds nothing, and serves only its own repetition. It is a life spent, as Arendt said, merely staying alive. His career as a waiter was a life sentence of pure, meaningless labor. But now he has broken the cycle. He has found work. His consulting, his protocol, that is work. It is the act of the artificer, the creator. He is building something new, something that did not exist before, something durable that will add to the human world. He is no longer just an animal surviving. He is an architect, building. He finishes his shift, the money in his pocket feeling different. It is not a wage, it is capital. He goes home. The apartment is quiet. Sarah is there, but the silence between them is no longer the tense, shared fear of before. It is something new, a respectful, confused, and watchful distance. She sees him, but he is a stranger. He nods to her, a simple, neutral gesture, and goes to the closet. He closes the door. This is not a retreat. This is not a shameful hiding place. This is his office. He turns on the monitor. He opens his email. He accepts the session request from the student in Texas. He schedules a time. He is now, officially, in business. The business of liquidating his own past. This is the manifestation of what the great traditions would call right livelihood. His existence was, for so long, wrong. It was misaligned. His work was a source of his shame, a constant grating friction against his authentic self. It was a life lived unskillfully, as the Buddhists would say. The miracle is not that he quit his job to follow his passion. The miracle is that he has transformed his job by the very nature of his new passion. The restaurant is no longer a source of shame. It is now simply the engine that powers his service. The labor has been given meaning by the work. By aligning his internal purpose, service, teaching, creating, his external actions, even the ones he once hated have become skillful. He is no longer a waiter who dreams of flying. He is a systems analyst, funding his research. We see him a week later. The closet is cleaner now. He has installed a small whiteboard. He is on a video call. On the screen is a young man, a kid from Texas, his face a mask of anxiety. I lock up, the kid is saying. The instructor yells, and I chase the needle, just like you wrote. Julian listens. He is not a therapist. He is not a life coach. He is a technician. Okay, Julian says, his voice calm, clear. Let's call that saturation. Your "I'm a failure" thought is input A. Your instructor's voice is input B. The needle is input C. You're trying to process them all. Your protocol is to have no protocol. So let's build one. He is teaching. He is for the first time using the poison. He is serving. He is doing the work. He finishes the session. The kid looks lighter. There is a thank you that is so profound it is almost silent. An hour later, a notification hits Julian's phone. A digital payment. The first money he has ever earned from his real self. It is not much, but it is the most valuable currency he has ever held. He immediately opens his banking app. He goes to the garnishment account, the terrible, flashing red number. He makes a direct payment. He watches the balance of his past trauma go down, just a little. He has done it. He has taken the energy from his new purpose and used it to, literally, pay off his old pain. He is no longer running. He is no longer hiding. He is in a race. The debt is still massive. The letters still come. The manager at the restaurant is still confused, watching him as if he's a ticking bomb. Sarah is still silent, a ghost in their shared apartment, watching him with a mixture of fear and a tiny, fragile new curiosity. She doesn't understand what he is doing, but she sees that he is no longer broken. He is building. He is building a new world, a new life, a new him, right in the center of the ruins of the old one. He is paying for his past by building his future, one session, one tip, $1 at a time. The question is no longer if he can do it. The only question left is, can he build it fast enough? The restaurant became the engine. The work as a waiter, once a source of corrosive daily shame, was now reclassified. It was no longer a prison. It was a funding mechanism. He performed the duties with an automaton's precision, but his mind was elsewhere. His shift was a block of time measured in capital. This 8-hour labor, this meaningless repetitive cycle of serving and clearing, would purchase him 3 hours of work when he got home. The tips were not for survival, they were for investment. He funneled the cash with a banker's cold efficiency into 2 accounts, one to pay down the principal of the past, the garnishment, and one to fund the future, the operating costs of his new business. He was a man running 2 separate parallel lives, using the energy of the one he hated to fuel the one that was just beginning to breathe. He was an analyst, a technician, and a consultant, disguised as a man carrying a tray. The business panic protocol systems grew. It was not a viral sensation. It was a slow, granular word-of-mouth build. An instructor in Arizona used the guide and saw his student, a chronic choker, finally pass. That instructor told 2 other instructors at his flight school. One of those instructors mentioned it in a newsletter. Soon, Julian's inbox was a steady, quiet stream of requests. Students in Texas, retirees in Florida, young pilots in training, all terrified of the same specific demon. He coached them from the closet, his voice calm, his method precise, deconstructing their panic and rebuilding it as a manageable system. He was, night after night, liquidating his own failure, converting his greatest shame into curriculum, and shipping it 1 session at a time to the people who needed it. He was in the closet, his office, finishing a session with a student in Vancouver. A notification appeared. A large digital payment has cleared, the fee for a block of 10 coaching sessions. He looked at the number. It was more than his weekly paycheck from the restaurant. He was still for a long moment. He opened his banking app. He looked at the flashing red and hateful number of the garnishment, the balance he had been chipping away at with tips and small payments. He looked at the new clean capital from his consulting. He took a breath. He transferred the funds. He made the final definitive payment. The red number vanished, replaced by a beautiful, simple and perfect 0.00. The asset was liquidated. The ledger was closed. The past was at long last paid for. He went to the restaurant the next day, handed Henderson his apron, and for the last time walked out the door. He used the rest of the money to walk back into the one place he had spent 5 years avoiding, a flight school. The smell was the same. The sharp, specific scent of aviation fuel and sun-baked vinyl, the smell of his original, catastrophic failure. The old fear was there, a cold knot in his stomach, a familiar ghost. But he was not the same man. This is the distinction Plato made. He was not the dreamer, the prisoner staring at shadows, terrified of what he felt. He was the philosopher, the one who had been outside the cave. He had faced his own failure, deconstructed it, and understood its form. He was here, not to dream, but to execute. He was not a pilot. He was a systems manager who was today applying his system to a small aircraft. He was not a student hoping to pass. He was a master, here to prove his own thesis. This is the great, profound promise of a life lived with purpose. It is not, as we are told, happiness. Happiness is a fleeting chemical reaction, an outcome. What he felt was what Aristotle called eudaimonia. It is not a feeling. It is a state. It is the deep, foundational and unshakable peace that comes only from actualizing one's highest potential. It is the human flourishing that occurs when your actions are in perfect alignment with your virtues. In his case, the virtues of reason, courage, and service. It is the reward for living an authentic, non-negotiable life. It is the correctness he felt as he sat for his final check ride. The instructor simulated the failure. He felt the cold knot, the signal. He acknowledged the input. He ran the protocol. His hands did not shake. He did not chase the needle. He flew the plane. He passed. The years passed. The journey was not a dream. It was a logical progression. The man who had mastered the panic protocol became the best instructor because he was the only one who could teach the inner system. The instructor became a regional pilot. The regional pilot, with his obsessive, granular knowledge of flight management systems, a knowledge born in a dark closet, was fast-tracked. And now he sits. The cockpit is dark, save for the cool purple and blue glow of the instruments. The world outside is a silent black void, studded with a billion stars. His hand is calm, resting lightly on the side stick of an Airbus A380, the very machine he mastered in his useless fantasy. He is a captain crossing the Atlantic, a systems manager in charge of 400 tons of metal and 200 souls. He has at last liquidated his asset. He has conquered the chaos of the sky. But he is flying home, and he knows with a quiet, cold certainty that the one system he has not yet solved, the one chaotic, silent protocol he has not yet dared to write, is waiting for him on the ground. He lands at night. The transition from the cockpit of the A380, a place of absolute order, of digital precision, of systems he controls with a thought, to the analog chaos of his own home, is always a decompression. The apartment they share now is not the old dark, stagnant room of their past. It is bright, clean, paid for. But the silence is still there. It has changed in texture from the brittle, terrified silence of their shared trauma to a new, strange, and hollow silence. It is the silence of two people living in different time zones, two orbits that, while no longer colliding, do not truly touch. He is a man who has liquidated his past, and he is living with a woman who is still a refugee of hers. He walks in. She is at the dining table, but she is not on her phone. The table is covered in papers, bank statements, old bills, a brochure for the local community college. She looks lost. He stops. This is a new scene. For years he has come home to her distraction, to the phantom glow of her screen, the wall she built to keep his new, strange energy at bay. Now he has come home to find her staring at the raw materials of her own life, her own fear, her own stagnation. She looks up, her eyes wide, almost cornered. She sees him, the captain's uniform, the quiet, centered calm that has become his default state, a state she has never, not really, understood. His success is to her a kind of magic, a miracle that happened to him. It is a thing she admires, but one that makes her feel even more left behind. She is confused. She gestures to the pile of paper, a gesture of profound exhaustion. "I don't understand how you did it," she whispers, and the question is an admission, a crack in the wall she has maintained for years. I look at this. Our finances. It's all fine. You fixed it." She shakes her head, the confusion turning into a pained, honest frustration. "But how? I watched you. You were in that closet. You were obsessed. And then you got calm. You got this logic. You just decided. And the world just agreed with you. You're not the person I knew. That person was scared," Julian says, his voice quiet. He doesn't move closer. He is giving her the space. "We were both scared. I was just scared and a failure." She looks at him, really looks at him, and she finally says it, the truth that has been poisoning their silence for years. "No," she says, "I wasn't scared of your failure. I was scared of mine. I was terrified of the debt. I was terrified of being on the street. You're dreaming. It was just a threat to my own safety. I wasn't an anchor for you, Julian. I was just another terrified investor, tied to the same sinking ship." We are watching the moment a relationship based on projections finally collapses, making way for something real. The philosopher Carl Jung built his life's work on this very idea. Most of our relationships, he argued, are not between two real people. They are a collaboration between two shadows. Julian's shadow was his failure, his paralysis. Sarah's shadow was her deep, profound fear of instability and ruin. Their old life, their tomb on the couch, was a contract between these two shadows. They were two broken halves leaning on each other, mistaking that desperate codependence for a whole. They were not partners, they were collaborators in a shared prison. His journey, his individuation, broke that contract. He stopped being his shadow. He stood up. He integrated his failure, turned it into a tool, and in doing so, he became whole. His wholeness, his calm, his purpose, this is what has been terrifying her. As long as he was broken, she understood him. They were equals. But his new, centered self, his quiet logic, it left her with nothing to hold on to. It forced her, in the resulting silence, to finally, after all these years, confront her own shadow, her own emptiness. This is the only way a relationship can ever be truly healed. It is not healed by one person fixing the other. It is healed when one person does the brutal, terrifying work of becoming an individual, and in doing so, creates the safe, stable, and non-judgmental space for the other person to choose to do the same. His calm was not an abandonment. It was an invitation. She looks down at the brochure on the table. It's for a night school program. Accounting and financial auditing. She pushes it toward him, a small, shy gesture. I was thinking, she says, her voice trembling but not with fear, with something new. I was thinking, I am good at numbers. I was always the one who managed the damage. But I was only ever reacting. I was only ever afraid of the numbers. You treated your failure like a math problem. You found a process, you liquidated it. That's the word you used. She looks up, and for the first time, he doesn't see fear in her eyes. He sees a blueprint. I think I need to liquidate my own fear. I need to find my own process. This is the final profound shift. This is the moment Martin Buber would have described as the evolution from an I-it relationship to an I-thou relationship. For their entire life, they were I-it. He was an it, a dangerous dreamer, an addict, a failure she needed to manage. She was an it to him, an anchor, a barrier, the voice of fear. They were objects to each other, projections of their own internal deficits. But in this moment, by her choosing her own path, by her stepping into her own process inspired by his, they cease to be objects. They are, for the first time, two I's, two whole, sovereign and complete individuals. They are no longer Julian and Sarah, the broken, codependent unit. They are Julian, and they are Sarah, and they are, at last, able to truly meet. He smiles, a real smile. He finally walks forward and puts his hand over hers on the brochure. "Then you'll be brilliant at it," he says. "You were always the real analyst. You were auditing the wrong books." The silence in the room is still there. But it is not the hollow, empty silence of two ghosts. It is the deep, comfortable and profound silence of two masters, two technicians, sitting in the same workshop, each one finally, peacefully, at work on their own, separate and beautiful machine. The chaos has been resolved, not by him fixing her, but by him fixing himself so completely that he gave her the map and the courage to do the same. We see a new cockpit. It is not the dark, vast flight deck of the A380. It is a next-generation simulator, a clean, bright and hyper-realistic training pod. Julian is here, but he is not in the captain's chair. He is in the right-hand instructor's seat, his face calm, observant. He has, in every sense of the word, completed the circle. He is no longer the haunted student of his own failure. He is the master, the teacher, who uses that failure as a map. He is now the mentor, the role once held by the woman in the bank. He has become the architect of his own logic, and now he shares the blueprint. This is the foundation his success built, a place to teach the one lesson no other flight school in the world offered: the lesson of the mind. In the pilot's seat there is a young woman no older than 20. Her knuckles are bone-white on the yoke. She is in the middle of a complex emergency scenario, the exact one that broke him, and she is starting to chase the needle, her inputs becoming sharp, short and panicked. I've lost it," she whispers, her voice tight with the familiar acidic sound of impending failure. "I'm saturated. I can't—" Julian doesn't sigh. He doesn't offer a platitude. He simply, calmly, pauses the simulation. The entire world outside the cockpit freezes on their near disaster. He just looks at her, his gaze not one of pity, but of pure, clean analysis. He is not her therapist. He is her systems engineer. He is here to debug her code. We are watching the final, beautiful conclusion of a life lived as service. He reached the pinnacle, the A380 cockpit, the dream that his younger self was so obsessed with, but he found, as all who complete the journey do, that the destination was not the end. It was just the platform. The true purpose, the final act of the journey, is to return. It is the vow of the bodhisattva in philosophy, to achieve enlightenment, to reach the far shore, and then to deliberately, willingly, turn the boat around and go back into the storm to ferry others across. He is not just teaching, he is repaying a cosmic debt. He is honoring the data that his own failure provided. This right here is the lesson. This is the why of the entire journey. It was never about him. It was never about Julian fixing his own life. It was about him transforming his pain into a tool and then giving that tool away. This is the core of the human experience, to find our purpose not in what we can get, but in what we can give. We see that his journey is only truly complete now that he is serving. If this path, this idea of turning your personal poison into a public medicine, is a journey you believe in, if it resonates with the architect in your own soul, consider subscribing to this channel. Join this community of builders and support the message. Julian taps the frozen screen, pointing to a single flashing red number. "You're right," he says to the student. "You are saturated, but you're calling that a failure. That's a misclassification." The student looks at him, confused. "That's not a failure, cadet. That's just data. Your panic isn't the problem. Your lack of a protocol for the panic is the problem. You are treating your mind like a single open room, and all the inputs are screaming at you. We are going to build you a firewall." He opens a new window, a blank document. "Let's list the inputs. Let's design your system. Let's liquidate this asset." He passes the lesson on, the words that a woman in a bank once used to save him. He has done it. He has transformed his ghost into a protocol, and now he is passing that protocol on. He has become a link in a chain of wisdom. The Roman philosopher Seneca argued that this is our highest human duty. We are debtors to the past, to all those who came before us and lit the path, and we have a profound moral obligation to pay it forward, to share the wisdom we have acquired, to ensure that the fire of human consciousness, of reason, of service, is passed on. Julian's legacy will not be the hours he flew as a captain. It will be the minds he rebuilt as an instructor. It will be the systems he designed to save others from the fog he was once lost in. We see him in his new life. He is at home in the bright apartment. Sarah is at the table, her own accounting books open, her brow furrowed in concentration. She looks up as he comes in. She doesn't just see him, she meets him. They are two equals, two technicians, two architects. He smiles, a real quiet smile, and goes to his own desk. He opens his laptop. He is not just a pilot or an instructor. He is a man with a purpose, a man who knows, with a cellular certainty, why he is on this earth. He has taken the two broken, chaotic and warring halves of his life, the technical, logical pilot and the shamed, broken dreamer, and he has forged them into a single, powerful and integrated whole. Julian's journey began with a terrifying question: what is the ROI in data? He was forced to look at his greatest failure, his ghost, and reclassify it. He stopped seeing it as a source of shame and started seeing it as his single greatest non-performing asset. He liquidated it and built his entire life. The journey from that dark closet to the captain's seat was not a miracle. It was a process. It was an act of brutal, honest accounting. So the final question is for you. What is your non-performing asset? What failure, what ghost from your past are you hiding? What if it's not a ghost, but your most valuable inventory? Let us know in the comments. What part of this journey spoke to you the most?